3 hours. That is all. 3 hours that can do more for your future than the last 3 years of trying, failing, starting again, and wondering why nothing changes. Not because the hours themselves contain magic, but because you have never listened in the way you are about to listen now. Most people drift through life repeating the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same fears, as if their mind were a machine set long ago by someone else. They work harder, yet achieve the same results. They try new strategies, yet fall into old habits. They speak of change, yet remain chained to the same identity. If that feels familiar, if you sense that invisible ceiling on your potential, then these 3 hours were made for you. Let me be direct. You are not held back by lack of intelligence, lack of opportunity, or lack of talent. You are held back because you have not yet mastered the laws that govern success. The laws you are rarely taught. The laws you were never trained to apply. The laws that determine who rises and who remains where they began. During these 3 hours, you will hear what most men go their entire lives without learning. Not theories, not motivational fluff. Laws. And laws do not care about your past failures. They do not care about your excuses. They do not care about your doubts. They operate the moment you obey them. But understand this. Your mind will resist. It will dismiss the truth before accepting it. It will cling to old beliefs because those beliefs feel safe, even if they are the very beliefs that have imprisoned you. Do not let that resistance rule you tonight. A single idea, properly planted, can rewrite the trajectory of your entire life. Many men are poor not because they lack opportunity, but because they never exposed their mind to an idea powerful enough to lift them out of their old identity. These hours contain dozens. Think of what has weighed on you lately. The financial pressure, the quiet dissatisfaction, the fear of wasting your potential, the gnawing understanding that you are capable of far more than your current circumstances reflect. These feelings are not weaknesses, they are signals. They are your mind telling you it is starving for a new direction. And direction is exactly what these hours will give you. Imagine hearing a principle that suddenly makes your failures make sense. Imagine learning a law that reveals why others succeed with half your effort. Imagine realizing that everything you desire, security, purpose, power, wealth, begins with a mental shift you can initiate tonight. Most men wait for a better life while repeating the thought patterns that make it impossible to receive one. You will not make that mistake. Let me warn you, though, if you listen casually, nothing will change. If you treat these hours like background noise, the ideas will pass over you like wind over a stone. These laws demand attention. They demand respect. They demand that you listen as though your destiny depends on it, because it does. If you truly absorb these teachings, you will never again wake feeling directionless. You will never again wonder why you fail. You will never again envy the success of others, because you will understand exactly how to create your own. Picture a moment in the near future. You make a decision with absolute certainty instead of anxiety. You begin a project without hesitation. You pursue an opportunity that once terrified you. You wake with energy instead of dread. You move through the world with the quiet power of a man who finally understands the laws governing his life. This is not imagination. It is the natural result of a trained mind. But training requires immersion, not snippets, not highlights. 3 uninterrupted hours in which your mind will receive a new blueprint, one that replaces confusion with clarity, fear with purpose, and limitation with possibility. Do not underestimate the power of uninterrupted exposure. Just as years of drifting shaped your subconscious into a servant of fear, hours of focused wisdom can begin shaping it into a servant of success. Ask yourself one question before you begin. What would my life look like if I finally learned the principles I should have been taught at the very beginning? What would your finances look like? What would your confidence feel like? What would your relationships become? What would your ambitions transform into? A man obeying the laws of success becomes dangerous, not to others, but to his own former mediocrity. He rises naturally, steadily, inevitably. He attracts allies, opportunities, and resources without chasing them. He commands his life instead of reacting to it. If you listen deeply, that man will begin forming inside you tonight. So prepare yourself. Quiet the noise around you. Take a breath not to relax, but to awaken. For the next 3 hours, give your mind the discipline it has been denied for too long. What you are about to hear can dismantle the beliefs that have held you back and construct the identity that will carry you where you are meant to go. Now begin, and do not drift for a single moment. Every man's life is an exact photograph of his thinking. His outer world is nothing more than the expression of the order or the disorder within his own mind. A man who lives in confusion, whose thoughts drift without direction, will find confusion in every corner of his affairs. But the man whose mind moves with order, whose purpose rules like a captain over his ship, will find order following him wherever he walks. Most men chase results before mastering the architecture of thought. They wake each morning trying to fix outer circumstances without once turning inward to ask, what arrangement of ideas rules me? Their efforts are frantic, their direction scattered, their energy wasted. Success does not belong to the restless, it belongs to the organized. It is not built upon ambition, it is built upon mental order. The mind is a workshop, not a battlefield. When your thoughts war against each other, when faith collides with fear and desire collides with doubt, you cannot create. Power leaks through contradiction. Every contradiction of thought weakens the force of achievement. Order your thoughts and your life will obey. You must learn to bring your mind under command as a general marshals his army. Each thought has its rank, its position, its duty. A man who cannot command his own thinking has no right to command the conditions of his life. Every great empire was first an empire of thought, disciplined, arranged, and obedient to purpose. Every great fortune began with one moment of decision to organize one's entire being around one clear purpose. The scattered man tries 100 things and fails at all. The organized man chooses one aim and bends every power of mind toward its realization. That decision marks the beginning of destiny. Consider Henry Ford. His vision was simple, to build a car for the multitude. The simplicity of that vision became his power. He refused to complicate it with self-doubt or distraction. Critics mocked him, bankers refused him, experts predicted ruin, yet his mind remained unmoved. His thought moved in one direction only, forward. That inner order made him the master of speed, efficiency, and progress in an age still lost in confusion. Indecision is the thief of power. The man who cannot decide cannot build. The drifter gathers no energy because his thought leaks in a dozen directions. A mind without order is like a lamp without a wick. There is light waiting to be born, but no structure to hold the flame. Andrew Carnegie understood this with perfect clarity. He built his empire not upon chance, but upon what he called his definite chief aim. He gathered thousands of men, hundreds of industries, and endless streams of capital under one single idea: steel for civilization. His mental order became the heartbeat of an entire industrial age. You too must learn to create such rhythm within yourself. Begin with one goal, one purpose. Write it, speak it, defend it. Then discipline your mind so that every thought, every plan, every word aligns behind it. Cast aside every idea that does not serve it, for even one contrary thought weakens the structure. Do not confuse busyness with order. Many men pride themselves on constant activity, yet their efforts are scattered in every direction. True order is calm. It is decisive. It moves with quiet command. The ocean is vast but moves by law, so too must your mind flow, deep, steady, and directed. Before sleep each night, practice what I call the night alignment. Sit in silence and say aloud your definite purpose. Visualize it complete, see it, feel it, believe it. Then command your mind. Nothing contrary to this purpose shall enter while I rest. Fall asleep in harmony with that thought, and your subconscious will spend the night arranging its forces in your favor. Use affirmations that demand alignment. Speak with authority. My thoughts move in one direction. I know what I want, and all I think supports it. I am calm, organized, and decisive. Each repetition is a nail driven into the framework of your new identity. Soon, indecision will vanish. Confusion will depart. What remains will be a mind as steady as the compass that guides a sailor through fog. The world recognizes order. It bows before it instinctively. People trust the man who knows what he wants. They sense certainty in his voice, clarity in his eyes, power in his step. He no longer persuades. He commands through quiet conviction. The world is drawn to him because he is organized within himself. Understand this: confusion repels opportunity. The man who doubts himself creates doubt in others. The man who hesitates gives permission for the world to pass him by. The law of inner order saves decades of wandering by giving your energy one master, not 1,000. Train your subconscious as one trains soldiers. It must learn discipline, repetition, and faith in leadership. If you fail to command it, it will follow the last voice it heard, usually the voice of fear. Fear gives orders far more often than purpose, but only because most men refuse the responsibility of leadership within their own minds. Picture a young clerk sitting in a dim office. He begins to organize his day. One purpose, one plan, one focus. He disciplines his speech, eliminates complaint, directs his energy. Within months, his employer notices something different: a quiet efficiency, an inner confidence. Opportunity finds him because he carries the vibration of order. It cannot help but be attracted to him. You see, success is never accidental. It is organized thought expressing through consistent action. Every disordered life can be traced to a disordered mind. Every failure is a monument to confusion, but every triumph is proof of inner harmony. Your subconscious, once trained to obey a definite purpose, becomes a living servant. It gathers ideas while you sleep, solutions while you rest, opportunities while you wait. Its only condition is clarity. It cannot serve two masters. Therefore, when you awaken tomorrow, give it one clear command. Do not scatter its forces with contradiction. Say, "Today, all I think, speak, and do moves me toward my purpose." Then watch how life arranges itself accordingly. Do not fear monotony in repetition. Repetition is the mother of mastery. You are not saying the same thing. You are engraving it deeper. The man who repeats his purpose until it becomes instinct will achieve more in 1 year than the scattered man achieves in 20. Carnegie once told me that his greatest secret was not steel, it was concentration. Men fail, he said, because they try to serve too many gods at once. You must choose one. Let every power of your being serve that god, your purpose. Think of the craftsman at his bench. His tools are laid neatly before him. Each has its place, its time, its use. He wastes no motion, he breaks no rhythm, and his work reveals harmony. Now compare him to the man whose tools are scattered, whose hands are hurried, whose mind is elsewhere. The result of each reflects the order within. The law of inner order is the foundation upon which all other laws stand. Without it, faith becomes superstition, imagination becomes chaos, emotion becomes destruction. Order is the skeleton of success. All else are the muscles and flesh that depend upon it. When you master inner order, you will notice a remarkable shift. Time slows, decisions simplify, confusion evaporates. What once felt overwhelming becomes organized instinct. Life itself begins to feel governed by rhythm, your rhythm. You may test this tonight. Before sleep, sit upright, breathe deeply, and declare, "My thoughts are orderly. My mind serves one purpose. All confusion is now replaced by command." Feel the power of that statement. Fall asleep with that vibration. By morning, you will notice the difference. Others will notice it too. They will sense a quiet authority in you. They will ask your opinion more often, trust your word more readily, follow your lead more easily, not because you demand it, but because the law demands it. Order is magnetic. The universe itself is an orchestra of order. Stars move by rhythm. Oceans obey tide. Seasons follow law. Only man dares live in contradiction and suffers for it. Align yourself with order, and you align yourself with the very intelligence that governs creation. When you feel anxiety creeping in, stop and ask, what thought is out of order? There will always be one. Replace it with the thought that serves your purpose. In that instant, you restore balance. Do this daily. Do it hourly if necessary. Soon order will become your habit. You will move through chaos as calmly as a captain through storm. For the storm outside cannot shake the man who commands the weather within. Remember, the mind is your estate. You are its ruler. You must keep it clean, cultivated, and governed. Every thought left unchecked is a weed. Every negative word is a trespasser. Every contradiction is a crack in the foundation. Guard it well. The day will come when order becomes your nature. Decisions will flow effortlessly. People will call you lucky, gifted, born with clarity. But you will know the truth. You trained yourself to think by law. The man who learns to rule his inner world becomes master of his outer one. The law has no exceptions. And when the world asks how you accomplished what others could not, you will smile and say, "I organized my mind before I organized my work." For all success begins there and nowhere else. When order is established, faith becomes its natural successor. For once the mind is organized, it must be fed not with doubt, but with belief. And so, as we move onward, we shall see that faith, rightly directed, consistently practiced, and deeply felt, is the engine that drives this inner machine toward its destined greatness. Faith is not a mystery. It is not a miracle reserved for the few. It is a law, a subtle but exact law, governing the relationship between thought and result. When understood, it becomes the most practical power a man can possess. For faith is the bridge between idea and fact, between invisible cause and visible effect. It is the medium through which the unseen becomes real. Men speak of faith as though it were sentiment, a fragile hope trembling in the wind. But faith is steel. It is disciplined belief, hardened through repetition and emotion until no contrary thought can penetrate. It is the mind's declaration that reality must conform to conviction. Without faith, no structure endures. With it, even the impossible obeys. You must understand, faith and fear are twin forces. They are equals in power, but opposites in purpose. Both demand belief. Fear believes in failure. Faith believes in law. Fear builds prisons. Faith builds empires. You cannot serve both. Every day, you choose which one will rule your subconscious. The average man uses faith in reverse. He believes more strongly in his limitations than in his possibilities. He rehearses defeat in advance. He visualizes loss until his subconscious accepts it as destiny. And then he calls it fate. But fate is only faith misused. The same law that multiplies success will multiply failure if you feed it the wrong seed. Faith must therefore be practiced consciously, not left to habit. You must train it, exercise it, and feed it. The subconscious accepts the emotion most often repeated. If that emotion is fear, your faith works against you. If that emotion is certainty, it works for you. Consider Thomas Edison. He failed thousands of times before producing the incandescent light. Yet not once did he say, "It cannot be done." He believed in the law of cause and effect, that every failure brought him closer to success. His faith was not blind. It was disciplined knowledge. He knew that no law could betray him if he obeyed its process. Faith acts through emotion. Logic alone cannot convince the subconscious. You may reason endlessly and remain powerless, but one burning conviction outweighs 1,000 arguments. The subconscious does not understand words. It understands feeling. Speak with warmth. Visualize with emotion. Believe with certainty, and the unseen begins to organize itself in your favor. Dr. Frank W. Gonzalez proved this truth. As a young minister, he declared before his congregation that he would one day build a great educational institution. He had no money, no influence, no plan, only faith. But his conviction was so strong that a wealthy man in attendance was moved to donate the first $1 million. The world gave him what he had already accepted in his heart. Faith is always personal before it is public. The man who waits for proof before believing will never see it. The law demands inward certainty first. Outer evidence follows. As seed precedes harvest, so belief precedes result. Practice what I call the faith rehearsal. Each night before sleep, imagine your goal fulfilled. Feel gratitude, not desire. Gratitude declares possession. Desire declares absence. Speak your affirmations aloud. It is done. My purpose is complete in mind, therefore it must appear in form. The subconscious hears those words not as wish, but as command. It begins rearranging outer circumstances to match the vibration of your conviction. People, ideas, and opportunities move as if drawn by unseen magnetism. Abraham Lincoln lived by this law. Through every defeat, through ridicule, through war, his inner testimony never wavered. The cause is right, therefore it must prevail. His faith outlasted armies, criticism, and despair. History itself bent to his belief. He did not beg providence, he cooperated with it. Faith cannot be borrowed, it must be built. The first step may feel forced, the next will feel awkward, the 100th will feel natural. You cannot demand faith once and expect permanence. It must be exercised daily until it becomes reflex. To build faith, begin with small commands. Speak to your subconscious through consistent victories. Tell it, I shall rise early, then do it. I shall finish this work, then complete it. Each promise kept is proof to the subconscious that your word is law. Keep enough promises, and faith becomes self-sustaining. Use affirmations that train faith deliberately. Every event serves my advancement. I believe in the law of cause and effect. I am guided by unseen intelligence towards success. Repeat these slowly with emotion until you feel their truth. Speak them when calm and when weary and when afraid. The repetition will carve channels of belief through which power will flow. You will notice change not only in fortune but in presence. Faith transforms the face, the voice, the bearing. People are drawn to it instinctively. They feel steadiness in your tone, confidence in your words, reliability in your silence. Faith is invisible, yet it is the most recognizable quality in any leader. The doubter, by contrast, betrays himself in every gesture. His eyes shift, his voice wavers, his words contradict. The subconscious of others senses his uncertainty and withholds cooperation. Opportunity itself avoids him, for the law cannot deliver power through a channel of doubt. Once faith becomes organized, it becomes automatic. The man of faith no longer asks, "Will this work?" He knows that knowing eliminates hesitation. His decisions are firm, his actions swift, his results certain. For the universe rushes to fulfill the conviction of the man who commands it with belief. Henry Ford expressed it perfectly. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. He meant that the subconscious builds reality according to the belief you impress upon it. Think you can, and every faculty within and around you cooperates. Think you cannot, and every faculty conspires to prove you correct. Faith must never be mistaken for idle optimism. Optimism is hope without discipline. Faith is conviction organized through law. The man of faith prepares his field and trusts the harvest. The optimist throws seed on barren ground and calls it destiny. Let me share a truth. Faith is never passive. It demands expression through action. Every true believer must demonstrate belief through deeds. The man who says, "I believe," yet acts in contradiction, has no faith at all. He has only opinion. The law reads action, not argument. There was once a clerk who desired advancement but doubted his worth. Each time opportunity appeared, he hesitated. Then one night he resolved to test faith. He declared before sleep, "I am capable and prepared. Life promotes me now." The next day, he volunteered for a task others avoided. Within weeks, his superiors recognized ability he had hidden even from himself. That is how faith works. It reveals what you already possess but have refused to claim. Understand this. The universe is neutral. It does not reward desire. It rewards belief. It does not punish ignorance. It reflects it. It is a perfect mirror, and faith is the hand that holds the glass steady. You cannot deceive the subconscious. You may recite affirmations endlessly, but if beneath them lies doubt, it will obey the doubt. The heart must feel what the lips declare. The tone of faith is certainty. Practice speaking in that tone until your own words convince you. When adversity comes, and it will, do not abandon your faith. That is the test of all builders. The storm does not mean destruction. It means refinement. Law never denies. It delays until belief is strong enough to hold what it grants. Faith must be self-contained. Do not announce your purpose to skeptics. Their unbelief is poison to your growth. Keep your faith private until results make it public. The oak tree hides its power underground before it dares show a leaf. So must you nurture your conviction in silence until it matures. Carnegie once told me, faith must be definite to be effective. He believed that uncertainty is the greatest waste of human energy. Decide, believe, act. The mind that hesitates is like a flickering flame. The slightest breeze extinguishes it. Let your faith be like the sun, constant, silent, and self-sustained. It does not argue with clouds. It simply shines until they dissolve. So too must your conviction outlast every doubt, every delay, every obstacle. When fear whispers, "What if you fail?" reply, "Then I shall try again." When doubt says, "You are not ready," answer, "Faith prepares me." When delay says, "Perhaps later," command, "Now." The subconscious accepts whichever voice you repeat most often. Make sure it is the voice of faith. Faith does not ignore fact, it transcends it. The man of faith acknowledges conditions but refuses to be governed by them. He sees them as clay, not wall. When men said flight was impossible, the Wright brothers' faith gave wings to wood and cloth. The law responded not to the skepticism of the crowd, but to the conviction of two men who believed. You may not yet see your success, but law sees your belief. It measures your readiness by your certainty, not by your circumstances. When belief is full, supply appears as naturally as morning follows night. Practice the night of faith. Before sleep, review your achievements, however small. Feel gratitude for them. Gratitude is faith at rest. Then speak softly. Everything I need is now forming. All that is mine comes in divine order. Fall asleep in that assurance. The subconscious will spend the night building bridges unseen by the waking eye. When you awaken, act as if your success were already guaranteed. Faith without demonstration fades. Each act of confidence renews the circuit between belief and result. You will notice that people begin to respond differently. They defer to your opinion, trust your judgment, seek your counsel. Not because you are louder or richer, but because you are surer. Faith has a sound, a rhythm, a magnetic pulse that others feel. It is the one quality that cannot be imitated. In time, you will learn that every failure was only a test of faith. When you cease interpreting delay as denial, life becomes your servant. The man who keeps faith through darkness becomes unshakable when light returns. If you could see the invisible world of thought, you would understand. Faith is the sculptor's hand shaping raw material into form. The world around you is clay. Your belief determines its shape. Therefore, make faith your daily discipline. Feed it with truth. Guard it from fear. Strengthen it with repetition. Protect it with silence. Reward it with action. The law of constructive faith saves years of wasted effort. It transforms struggle into flow, hope into certainty, effort into expression. It turns the impossible into the inevitable. When you master this law, you no longer ask, "Can I?" You declare, "I will." You no longer wait for permission. You give it. You no longer chase success. You attract it. Faith, combined with order, becomes unstoppable momentum. The man who organizes his thoughts and fuels them with faith becomes the builder of worlds. His subconscious no longer hesitates. It obeys instantly. His results come faster, his confidence grows stronger, his path becomes straighter. And so, when you lie down tonight, remember, your tomorrow begins in your belief about it. Say aloud, "My faith commands success. My doubt has no voice. All I think, speak, and feel aligns with victory." Then let silence seal the covenant. For when faith has taken root, you will rise to find life bending to your will, not through magic, but through law. And now, as the mind grows strong in faith, it must learn to direct that power toward creation. For faith alone is potential. Imagination turns it into form. Let us therefore move to the next great law, where faith becomes vision and vision becomes destiny, the law of controlled imagination. Imagination is the birthplace of all power. Every bridge, every empire, every fortune, every system that ever changed the face of the earth was first a picture in the mind of one man who refused to let that picture fade. Imagination is not idle dreaming, it is organized creation. It is the workshop of the soul, the silent room where the invisible becomes visible. Most men use imagination against themselves. They picture debt, sickness, failure, and ridicule more vividly than they picture success. They replay insults in the mind until they become reality, and they call it bad luck. But there is no luck, only the law of creation. Whatever picture the mind holds with feeling, the subconscious builds without question. It cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a lived one. It only obeys. This is why the law of controlled imagination stands at the summit of success. You may possess faith, ambition, and industry, but without control of imagination, you build castles on sand. The undisciplined imagination is a runaway horse. It drags the rider through fear and folly. The trained imagination, however, becomes a stallion of infinite strength, carrying the rider wherever he commands. Controlled imagination is the deliberate act of shaping thought into form, feeding it emotion, and maintaining its image until the subconscious accepts it as instruction. Once accepted, the image begins to materialize through the channels of law. It summons people, conditions, and ideas as faithfully as the magnet draws iron. Consider the story of King Camp Gillette. He saw a vision so simple that it seemed foolish, a razor that could be used once and thrown away. The world called it madness. Investors mocked him. Years passed in failure and ridicule, but his imagination never wavered. Each night he held the image of his invention in every man's hand. That image burned so clearly that the subconscious law itself bent to fulfill it. Today, his name rests in the homes of millions. You must learn to direct imagination as precisely as the architect directs his hand. The subconscious builds what it sees. You are the architect of your inner world, and your plans must be definite. Do not say, "I wish to be rich." That is fog. Say instead, "I see myself commanding wealth through my service to others. I see my work valued, my name respected, my purpose clear." Controlled imagination begins with stillness. A turbulent mind cannot create. Before you picture your aim, quiet the noise of the day. Breathe slowly. Release worry. Then, in that inner silence, construct the scene of your success as though it were taking place now. See the details, hear the voices, feel the satisfaction. The clearer the image, the stronger the command. Understand this: emotion is the lifeblood of imagination. Thought without emotion is a cold draft, lifeless, inert. But when you charge imagination with gratitude, joy, or faith, it becomes power in motion. The subconscious reads emotion as urgency. If you imagine success with boredom, you will receive delay. But if you imagine with conviction, the result becomes inevitable. The mind obeys pictures, not paragraphs. Words may deceive you, but the subconscious responds only to image and tone. If you say, "I am rich," but picture poverty, your subconscious believes the picture, not the words. This is why idle affirmations fail. They lack image and feeling. Controlled imagination unites both. Charles M. Schwab demonstrated this law perfectly. As a young man in Carnegie's steelworks, he pictured himself leading men of genius. He felt the weight of command, the responsibility of leadership, the satisfaction of success. That picture became so real within him that when opportunity arose, he stepped into it as naturally as if he had rehearsed it for years, because he had. Every night before sleep, perform what I call the imaginative command. Choose one goal, one image, one definite scene. Picture yourself at the moment of accomplishment. See the evidence. Feel the victory. Smile with gratitude. Then whisper, "This is now mine in divine order." Fall asleep inside that vision. The subconscious, never idle, will work upon that picture until it finds expression in the outer world. But beware the untrained imagination. The same faculty that can build wealth can also build ruin. Many men spend their nights constructing images of loss, worry, and rejection, then wonder why misfortune visits them. They do not understand that imagination is the sculptor of experience. Every fear image is a design delivered to the subconscious for construction. It will not question. It will only build. Elbert Hubbard mastered this principle. When critics scorned his work, he did not imagine defeat. He pictured his small printing press expanding into a community of creators. He saw the beauty of craftsmanship, the loyalty of his followers, the respect of readers. His imagination refused to dwell upon insult. That single habit made him one of the most influential thinkers of his age. You must therefore guard imagination as you would guard treasure. Keep it clean. Keep it directed. Do not let others' opinions infect it. Their limitations are not your laws. The man of controlled imagination lives above the gossip of failure. His world is too real within him to be altered by the fears of others. To strengthen this faculty, practice what I call the mental cinema. Each night, play one short scene of success before sleep. Do not change the scene until it becomes vivid. Repetition engraves it into the subconscious. Gratitude seals it. Soon this vision becomes a memory, not of the past, but of the future. Think of imagination as rehearsal. Every great actor practices the role until it becomes identity. The subconscious cannot tell rehearsal from performance. It records both as truth. When you imagine wealth long enough, your subconscious believes you are wealthy and begins to attract experiences that match. This is why you must persist in your image until it feels natural. When you no longer strain to believe, but simply know, manifestation is near. A man does not struggle to believe the sun will rise, he expects it. So must your mind expect the success it has already pictured. Controlled imagination demands discipline. You cannot entertain fear images and expect prosperity. You cannot picture failure by day and wealth by night. The subconscious will follow the stronger impression. Therefore, whenever a picture of fear arises, replace it instantly with its opposite. Picture success. Feel relief. Move on. Each substitution strengthens control. Edison practiced this law unconsciously. Before building a single device, he perfected it in mental experiment. He would sit in silence, close his eyes, and see the mechanism working flawlessly. He tested it in imagination until failure was impossible. Only then did he bring it to life. His imagination was his laboratory. His results were its proof. The imagination must be constructive. It must serve purpose. Idle fantasy dissipates energy. Controlled imagination concentrates it. The mind that pictures success with the intent to serve multiplies its power 100-fold. The law rewards usefulness. Greed creates resistance, but purpose creates flow. Imagination must also be definite. One picture, repeated daily, has more power than 100 vague dreams. The man who changes his vision every week sends mixed orders to the subconscious. It cannot obey confusion. Fix your image and hold it until the world conforms. Controlled imagination is not mere vision. It is belief in motion. When faith fuels imagination, creation becomes inevitable. When doubt interrupts it, creation halts. Therefore, do not question how your image will be fulfilled. That is not your task. Your duty is to design the picture. The law will supply the means. Your environment will begin to shift as your images mature. You will notice new people appearing, old obstacles dissolving, fresh opportunities forming. Others will call it coincidence. You will know it as law in operation. For the outer world must reflect the inner image. It cannot do otherwise. People will sense the change in you before they can explain it. They will feel drawn to your calm assurance, your quiet conviction. They will say, he carries something certain about him. That certainty is imagination organized. It is power wearing the face of peace. Affirm often, I see my success clearly, therefore it must be. Every image I hold with faith becomes fact. I am the architect of my destiny. Repeat these not as idle chants, but as statements of law. Speak them slowly, with feeling, as if each word were a stone placed in the foundation of your future. Controlled imagination saves years of labor. While others wander through trial and error, you will have rehearsed victory in advance. You will make your mistakes in the mind before making them in the world. You will arrive prepared, confident, and calm. It is better to build one clear picture than to chase a dozen uncertain hopes. The focused imagination gathers energy like sunlight through a lens. The scattered imagination diffuses it like smoke in wind. Concentration is power. Practice holding one picture for longer each night. If your mind wanders, return it gently. Each return strengthens discipline. In time, your mind will obey instantly. It will no longer drift to fear. It will rest naturally upon faith. The law of controlled imagination is the greatest secret of genius. It explains why some men achieve effortlessly while others toil endlessly. The difference lies not in talent, but in image. The genius sees his creation complete before beginning. The laborer sees obstacles before progress. The law obeys both perfectly. And remember, imagination is holy ground. It is the meeting place between man and infinite intelligence. Every inspired idea is born there. To misuse imagination for fear is to blaspheme against the power that created you. Use it instead to glorify law through achievement. When your imagination is disciplined, the universe becomes your apprentice. It follows your blueprint faithfully. You need not force results. You need only hold the picture. The law itself does the work. Before sleep tonight, build your vision once more. Picture it alive, breathing, complete. Then surrender it. Say, infinite intelligence fulfills this now. And rest. In the silence of sleep, your subconscious will labor ceaselessly to bring the unseen into being. When you awaken, act as if the image were already reality. Walk, speak, and decide in harmony with it. Each act reinforces belief. The subconscious sees your behavior as evidence and accelerates creation. Soon, imagination will no longer feel like practice. It will feel like memory. The day you look at your world and realize it matches your inner picture, you will understand this truth. You have never created anything new. You have only remembered what you imagined. And as faith finds expression through imagination, another challenge arises: the control of the emotional power that fuels it. For imagination without emotional mastery is like lightning without direction. It dazzles but destroys. Now you must learn to direct emotion with the same authority with which you have directed thought. For the final key to mastery lies not merely in what you think or picture, but in how you feel. Emotion is the power that gives life to every idea. It is the current that animates creation. Let us therefore move to the next great principle, the law of emotional mastery, where the disciplined mind becomes unshakable and success becomes permanent. Emotion is the invisible current that powers the entire machinery of the mind. It is the soul's electricity, unseen, yet governing every movement of your destiny. You may hold the grandest vision, the finest purpose, the clearest plan. But if your emotions are undisciplined, your ship will veer off course at the first gust of adversity. Controlled emotion is the sign of true power. The strongest mind in the world can be rendered helpless by ungoverned feeling. A man ruled by anger destroys alliances. A man enslaved by fear paralyzes his talent. A man consumed by envy poisons his own soil. Emotion, like fire, can warm the home or burn it to ashes. The difference lies only in direction. Most men misunderstand emotion. They imagine it to be an enemy to be suppressed. But emotion is not to be killed. It is to be mastered. For emotion is the raw fuel of creation. Thought is the blueprint. Emotion is the flame that brings it to life. Suppress emotion and your mind grows cold. Misuse emotion and your world collapses in chaos. But channel it, and it becomes the secret energy of success. The law of emotional mastery declares every emotion, rightly directed, is power. Every emotion, left unchecked, is peril. Your task is not to rid yourself of feeling, but to make feelings serve your definite purpose. Imagine a great dynamo spinning with force. If you connect it to proper wiring, it lights an entire city. If you connect it to nothing, it burns itself out. So too with your emotions. They must be attached to purpose, or they will turn inward and consume you. Abraham Lincoln understood this law. Few men ever faced greater ridicule, sorrow, or weight of responsibility. Yet through it all, he kept calm. His patience was not weakness, it was strength under rule. His serenity preserved the Union more than any army could. He felt deeply, but his emotions never dictated his judgment. They served his vision instead of destroying it. Contrast this with the man who reacts to every challenge in passion and rage. He exhausts his power before he even begins his work. He quarrels, blames, and justifies while opportunity slips quietly away. Such a man lives as a slave. His emotions are his master. You must become sovereign over your inner world. The first act of mastery is awareness. Observe your feelings without obeying them. When anger rises, pause. When fear whispers, listen. Then answer with faith. When envy stirs, transform it into admiration. The moment you command the emotion instead of reacting to it, the law begins to serve you. Emotion governs vibration, and vibration governs attraction. Whatever emotional tone dominates your life determines the kind of experiences that meet you. Fear attracts loss. Gratitude attracts gain. Anger invites resistance. Peace invites cooperation. You do not merely experience emotion, you broadcast it, and life replies in the same tone. Therefore, each night before sleep, practice what I call the emotional cleansing. Sit quietly and review your day. Recall each moment of irritation, regret, or fear. Release them consciously. Say, no discord remains in me, only faith and goodwill dwell here. Feel yourself becoming lighter, cleaner, freer. Then fall asleep in peace. The subconscious cannot create harmony from turmoil. It builds according to your final feeling before rest. Henry Ford exemplified this power of calm. When his factories burned to the ground, reporters rushed to record his despair. They found him smiling. "We'll rebuild better," he said. Within weeks, he did. His serenity under fire became his strength. Men trusted him because nothing could shake him. They followed him because he was unmoved by fear. Understand this. Resentment is the most expensive emotion in existence. It costs a man years of progress. Each grudge divides his mind. Each bitterness drains his creative force. You cannot hate and prosper simultaneously. Hatred binds you to the past. Forgiveness releases you to the future. Elbert Hubbard turned rejection into rebirth because he refused to resent it. Critics tried to humiliate him. He answered with art. He transformed insult into industry. Every ounce of emotional pain became fuel for creativity. Such is the secret of mastery, not the absence of wounds, but the alchemy that turns wounds into wisdom. Emotion is the climate of the soul, and thought is its seed. Even the richest seed cannot grow in a storm. Therefore, your first duty each day is to calm the weather within. When you awaken, declare, "Peace within me creates order without. I am the master of my mood. Nothing external commands me." Speak it with conviction until your tone steadies and your breath deepens. No man can hold faith in one hand and anger in the other. The two cannot coexist. Anger drives faith away as storm drives away light. Therefore, when fury tempts you, remember your purpose. Ask yourself, does this emotion serve my aim or sabotage it? The answer will decide your destiny. There is immense strength in composure. The world mistakes calmness for indifference, but calmness is power collected. It is energy stored, ready to act with precision. The man who remains calm under pressure holds authority over men who lose themselves to emotion. They may shout, he decides. They may panic, he directs. Andrew Carnegie, commanding armies of laborers and executives, never raised his voice in anger. He ruled not by force, but by calm confidence. His peace gave others certainty. In his presence, quarrels dissolved, confusion cleared, harmony returned. Such is the influence of one emotionally disciplined man, it spreads order wherever he stands. You may ask, how does one begin to master emotion? By substitution. You cannot fight emotion. You must replace it. Darkness disappears only when light enters. So when fear arises, substitute faith. When envy appears, substitute gratitude. When irritation flares, substitute understanding. Each substitution weakens the old habit and strengthens the new. Practice this substitution until it becomes automatic. The first time it will feel false. The 10th time it will feel possible. The 100th time it will feel natural. Repetition is the hand that molds emotion into obedience. Let us speak of fear, the oldest enemy of man. Fear paralyzes effort, blinds reason, and poisons imagination. It whispers of danger where none exists. Yet fear cannot live in the same mind as faith. They are mortal opposites. The instant faith speaks, fear dissolves. The instant purpose commands, fear retreats. Fear survives only in the mind without direction. Whenever fear attacks, use this affirmation, "I am guided by law, therefore I am secure. My faith is stronger than my doubt. Nothing can defeat me except the thought of defeat." Speak these slowly until your heartbeat steadies and your breathing returns to peace. Feel the power returning to your control. The subconscious reads calmness as command and organizes life accordingly. Anger is the second great enemy. It burns judgment and invites ruin. Anger always costs more than it yields. The moment you feel it, you lose clarity. You say what you regret. You do what you must repair. You undo the order you have built. Train yourself to pause between impulse and action. In that pause lies mastery. Say to yourself, "I am greater than this moment. I will not spend eternity paying for a minute's madness." That single thought has saved empires. Envy is the most deceptive emotion. It wears the mask of ambition. It whispers, "Why not you?" But beneath that question hides resentment. Replace envy with admiration. Admiration converts poison into inspiration. When you admire greatness, you draw it toward you. What you bless, you attract. What you curse, you repel. Guilt is another destroyer. It convinces the mind it does not deserve success, and the subconscious, always obedient, removes success to preserve the illusion of virtue. Understand this: guilt serves no one. Correct your error, learn from it, and release it. The law does not punish, it instructs. Each night, forgive yourself and others. Say aloud, I release all judgment. I carry only gratitude into sleep. In that vibration, your subconscious restores equilibrium. It begins to harmonize your next day with peace instead of punishment. The emotionally mastered man walks differently. He does not rush. He does not argue. His voice carries weight because it is never wasted on complaint. His presence calms rooms. His eyes steady the fearful. He has become a living demonstration of law. Others feel better merely by standing near him. That is the magnetic power of equilibrium. Do not mistake stillness for stagnation. Stillness is the silence before creation. It is the power of water behind a dam, quiet, immense, ready. The noisy man spends his strength. The calm man stores it. To live by this law is to save years of turmoil. The man who cannot control emotion ruins decisions, alienates allies, and repeats the same mistakes. He calls it bad fortune, not knowing it is self-made storm. But the man who disciplines emotion saves energy, strengthens influence, and shortens his path to success. Emotional mastery does not mean detachment from life. It means deeper engagement through higher control. You feel fully, but you choose consciously. You love deeply, but without fear. You face hardship, but without panic. You experience joy, but without excess. You have learned to feel without being ruled. Let your emotions become your servants, not your sovereigns. When enthusiasm arises, direct it to your purpose. When passion stirs, bind it to your work. When love awakens, let it expand your service to mankind. Every emotion, purified and directed, multiplies your power. Repeat often, no emotion commands me. I command emotion. Peace within me creates peace around me. Every feeling serves my purpose. Write these on paper and carry them with you. Read them when troubled. Whisper them when weary. The repetition will anchor your equilibrium. The final test of emotional mastery comes not in comfort, but in crisis. When the storm rises, when men panic, when the world shouts confusion, remain still. Your stillness will become the eye of the storm. Solutions will find you because they cannot find noise. Carnegie once faced the collapse of markets that threatened to destroy his empire. His associates trembled. He sat quietly, smoked his cigar, and said, "Gentlemen, let us think." That calmness saved millions. Panic destroys, serenity rebuilds. Remember this law whenever trouble appears. Emotion uncontrolled is your enemy. Emotion mastered is your miracle. And when you master emotion, something extraordinary happens. Your subconscious begins to operate in perfect order. It interprets adversity as instruction, not punishment. It turns every difficulty into refinement. It transforms every challenge into growth. You have now reached the summit of mastery, where thought, faith, imagination, and emotion move in perfect harmony. The mind has become one instrument, tuned to the rhythm of law. The man who reaches this point no longer forces success, he embodies it. He is no longer the servant of chance. He is the channel of purpose. He walks with quiet confidence, speaks with calm conviction, and acts with deliberate grace. Fortune follows him not because he demands it, but because he vibrates with its frequency. Now bring these 4 laws together in your heart. Order gives structure to thought. Faith gives strength to purpose. Imagination gives direction to creation. Emotion gives life to it all. When these are united, a man becomes unstoppable. He no longer depends on circumstance. Circumstance depends on him. And so, as you lie down tonight, let this understanding fill you. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is emotion disciplined to serve your destiny. Say to yourself, I am master of my inner world. Therefore, I am master of my fate. Then rest, knowing this truth. When your thoughts are ordered, your faith unbroken, your imagination disciplined, and your emotions mastered, life itself becomes your obedient servant. You have been carrying more than you admit. There are mornings when you wake already tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of another day that looks exactly like the one before it. You feel stretched thin, pulled in every direction, yet somehow falling behind. And you ask yourself in silence, how long can I keep living like this? You try to be strong for your family, but there are moments when you stand alone in a quiet room and feel the pressure in your chest, pressure you cannot explain, pressure you cannot escape. You wonder why your problems keep piling up faster than your strength can grow. You wonder why even small setbacks seem to strike you harder than they should. At times you feel ashamed of how easily life overwhelms you. You were not supposed to be this tired, this worried, this uncertain. You were supposed to be further ahead by now. You were supposed to have more money saved, more doors open, more pride in what you've built. Instead, you feel trapped inside a life you promised yourself you would outgrow. You look at your family and try to hide the storm inside you. You don't want them to see you worried, afraid, or defeated, and yet they sense it. Your partner sees it in your eyes before you speak. Your children notice the heaviness in your voice even when you smile. They do not say it, but they feel when the foundation of the home is trembling. And perhaps the deepest pain is this. The problems you face are starting to shape the way you think. You catch yourself expecting disappointment. You brace for setbacks before they arrive. You fear that one more hardship might be enough to break you. A man can endure much, but he cannot endure forever without rising. If this is how you feel, then hear me well. You are not weak. You are simply standing too low. And when a man stands low, even the smallest problems strike him like giants. But when he rises, truly rises, he looks back and wonders how those same problems ever frightened him at all. This speech is for the man who is tired of being struck from every direction, the man who is tired of waking up already behind, the man who looks at his life and whispers, there must be more than this, the man who is ready to climb to a height where nothing, no fear, no doubt, no setback, can touch him. I have studied such men. I have walked beside them in their lowest moments and their greatest victories. I have seen clerks rise to command industries. I have seen laborers rise to wealth. I have seen men who once trembled at their problems rise so high that those same problems became nothing but distant memories. But they did not rise by chance. They rose by law. And that law, once understood, can lift any man who obeys it. It lifted Andrew Carnegie from poverty. It lifted Charles Schwab from obscurity. It lifted Henry Ford from exhaustion and ridicule. And it can lift you, no matter how heavy your present burdens feel. Before I reveal this law, I want you to imagine something small yet powerful. Imagine waking one morning without dread. Imagine walking through your home with calm authority instead of tension. Imagine your partner looking at you with pride instead of concern. Imagine your children seeing strength in your posture, not strain. Imagine facing the same problems you have now, yet feeling untouched by them. Imagine seeing them from such a height that they no longer threaten your peace, your confidence, or your future. This is not wishful thinking. This is the natural consequence of rising. But you cannot rise halfway. You cannot rise casually. You cannot rise while clinging to your old fears, your old doubts, your old habits. You must rise fully, decisively, so completely that the world can no longer treat you as the man you used to be. That is why you must listen closely. If you drift while I speak, you will miss the very principle that breaks the chains around your mind. If you skip even a single minute, you will miss the law that separated the weak from the powerful, the defeated from the invincible. Understand this. Rising is not about solving all your problems. It is about becoming so strong that your problems lose their power. When a man rises high enough, confusion becomes clarity, fear becomes faith, setbacks become lessons, and obstacles become stepping stones. Picture your future self, 5 years, 3 years, even 1 year from now, standing tall, unshaken, unmoved by the troubles that once crushed you. Picture the day you look back on your old problems and laugh, not because they were small, but because you became massive. Picture the faces of those around you. Your partner watching with quiet awe as you walk into rooms with calm certainty. Your children learning courage by watching your example. Your friends noticing that something in you has changed. Your voice firmer, your eyes clearer, your presence stronger. Even your rivals feeling uneasy because you have become someone they can no longer intimidate. This transformation begins with one decision, one moment where a man says, "Enough, I rise." You may think you have made this decision before, but if your life has not changed, then the decision was not complete. A true decision commands the mind, reshapes identity, and alters the course of destiny. And I will show you how to make that decision in a way that lasts, a way that lifts you so high that nothing, no problem, no fear, no critic, no failure can touch you. But you must hear every word. You must remain with me until the final sentence. Miss one moment, and the law loses its strength. Hear all of it, and you will rise. Your current problems are not proof that you are failing. They are proof that life knows you are ready to grow beyond the man you have been. And this message has found you now because the time to rise has arrived. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Stay with me, and I will show you how to climb to a height where your old problems cannot reach, and where the man you become will look back and laugh at the things that once terrified him. A man does not overcome difficulty by wrestling with it on the same level where it was born. He rises above it, expands beyond it, and stands upon an inner height where the problem loses its former power. This is the first law of rising. The size of your problem is measured by the size of the man who confronts it. When a man stands low in spirit, even the smallest trouble can bend him. A late bill, a harsh word, a moment of uncertainty. These strike him with the weight of calamity. But when he rises in thought and builds inward stature, those same troubles shrink into manageable tasks. They do not change. He changes. Carnegie was born into poverty so severe his family shared a single room with no comfort, no certainty, no promise. Yet he grew mentally long before he grew financially. His inner height outpaced his outer situation. Poverty did not erase itself. Carnegie simply rose beyond the reach of its grip. Henry Ford faced ridicule so persistent that most men would have surrendered. His ideas were mocked as impossible. His first business failed. His savings dissolved. Yet he rose in mind before he rose in life. The ridicule continued, but it no longer reached him. He had climbed to a height where doubt could not touch him. Charles Schwab learned something similar. He realized early that a man who rises inwardly gains a power that no environment can limit. He was once a clerk, nothing more. Yet he carried himself with the confidence of one who belonged among leaders. He rose inwardly until the world was forced to recognize the rise. You must understand this principle. Problems strike hardest when a man lives beneath his potential. When he rises, they lose their force. They may still appear, but they cannot break him. They become pebbles beneath the feet instead of stones upon the back. A man who rises carries a stillness that cannot be shaken. He walks through storms with calm judgment while others panic. His family senses the change before his career does. His partner sees a stronger light in his eyes. His children hear a steadier tone in his voice. They do not know what has changed, but they feel safer in his presence. This is why I call it the height of mind. It is a mental elevation where fear thins, where confusion loses form, where doubt fades like mist lifting from a field. At this height, new clarity appears. You begin to see what once frightened you as small, temporary, and unworthy of your worry. But you cannot rise halfway. A man who rises only in moments collapses in the hours between. True rising demands decision, an inner declaration that the former self has reached its end. A man must say to himself, I refuse to remain small. I refuse to bow to burdens. I rise. Decision creates clarity. Clarity shapes identity. Identity commands action. Action produces elevation. This is the inner elevation method, a sequence followed by every man who outgrew his problems and rose into authority. The first stage is awakening. A man becomes aware that his present stature is too small for the life he desires. There is a discomfort inside him, a pressure pushing outward, telling him he must grow. At this stage, he does not yet rise, but he understands he must. The second stage is the refusal of drift. Drift is the silent erosion of strength. It keeps a man low. It convinces him he is attempting progress while it steals his years. When a man refuses drift, he breaks the cycle that held him in place. This refusal is often the beginning of power. The third stage is declaration. A man speaks aloud the truth he intends to become. He does not whisper it. He states it with command. Declaration is the force that awakens the subconscious and alerts it that a new identity is forming. The fourth stage is disciplined elevation. This is where the real rise occurs. The man strengthens his thought, purifies his motives, orders his mind, and brings dignity to his conduct. He walks, speaks, works, and decides from a higher inner place. The final stage is consolidation. The rise becomes permanent. The man no longer falls back to his former level. His new height becomes his natural state, and the world begins to adjust to the stature he now possesses. A man who rises in this way becomes impossible to intimidate. Pressure does not unsettle him. Doubt cannot bend him. Criticism does not disturb him. He is no longer governed by the reactions of fear. He is governed by purpose. This rise transforms the tone of a man's voice. It becomes steadier, deeper, more certain. His posture changes, shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes calm. People around him sense a new authority. He does not need to announce it. Presence speaks louder than words. Problems that once consumed his days become tasks solved before breakfast. Emotional storms that once stirred his mind now pass without touching him. Conflicts that once sent him into worry now dissolve under the weight of his clarity. A rising man becomes a master of difficulty, not by fighting every problem, but by becoming too large for problems to overwhelm. A man who stands at a high mental altitude sees challenges as stepping stones because he sees farther than those who stay low. Consider Abraham Lincoln. During the darkest hours of the nation, he faced pressures that would crush most men. Yet he rose inwardly. His mind stood above the turmoil. He became larger than the storm. Those around him felt his strength and steadied themselves. Consider Edison. His setbacks were counted by the hundreds, yet his mind stood above each failure. He rose so far beyond discouragement that failure could not reach him. To him, each difficulty was only another ascent, another step upward. A man who does not rise remains trapped. His problems appear larger each year. His worries multiply. His frustrations deepen. He wastes years trying to fix his life without fixing the stature of the man who lives it. This is the tragedy of staying low. It steals time. Years lost to worry. Years lost to drift. Years lost to fear of what a rising man could handle with ease. When a man rises, he saves 10, 20, even 30 years of struggle. The issues that once demanded whole seasons of effort now require only days. The conflicts that once consumed months now resolve themselves because the man no longer feeds them with weakness. The law is simple. Rise first, solve second. A man who tries to solve from a low place makes everything harder. A man who rises before he solves uses clarity instead of confusion, authority instead of fear, direction instead of hesitation. A rising man becomes untouchable because his inner world is no longer shaped by outer conditions. He carries a calm center regardless of noise, pressure, or difficulty. His strength is not borrowed from circumstance. It is generated from within. A man who rises looks back on his former problems and feels almost embarrassed by how much they once frightened him. Not because those problems were small, but because he has become larger. He laughs, not at the hardship, but at his former self. He sees how far he has climbed and understands that fear belonged to a smaller man he no longer is. This is the transformation waiting for you. You need not change your entire life today. You need only rise 1 inch in thought, 1 inch in dignity, 1 inch in decision. Those inches compound. They become feet, then yards, then heights unimaginable to the man you were. And when you rise far enough, nothing, absolutely nothing, can touch you. Affirm this now. I rise in spirit, and nothing can touch me. Strength does not come from muscle, nor from fortune, nor from favorable conditions. It comes from the will of a man who decides he will not bend. When a man carries such will, life itself adjusts to him. Pressure may surround him, but it cannot enter him. Storms may rise, but they cannot disturb his inner stillness. A steady man is not born. He is built. He forges himself in silence, in discipline, in the hours when the world is busy collapsing under its own noise. While others scatter at the first sign of difficulty, he gathers himself tighter. His power grows not from struggle, but from composure. This is the principle of inner steel. It is the quiet strength that holds a man upright when circumstances try to push him to the ground. Inner steel cannot be borrowed, it cannot be inherited, it cannot be purchased. It must be forged through disciplined thought and unwavering self-respect. Charles Schwab possessed such steel. He began as a clerk, earning no privilege and commanding no authority. Yet he walked with a calm confidence that unsettled men far above him in rank. They sensed something in him they could not explain, a steadiness that signaled future leadership. Long before he rose in position, he rose in composure. Abraham Lincoln demonstrated inner steel during the nation's most perilous years. While the country fractured and advisors trembled, Lincoln remained steady. His voice held a controlled gravity. His posture conveyed quiet strength. His inner calm steadied an entire nation. Men follow those who remain unbroken under pressure. John D. Rockefeller faced storms that would have destroyed ordinary men. During the national financial panic, when banks fell and businessmen collapsed into fear, Rockefeller walked the streets with calm eyes. He evaluated, calculated, and acted with serene precision. Panic could not enter him. His steadiness became a fortress. This same steadiness is available to any man who chooses to discipline his will. It is built intentionally. It begins with the decision to no longer be governed by fear. A man must declare that his will, not his worry, will direct his days. The transformation begins internally. Before the voice steadies, the thought steadies. Before the posture strengthens, the conviction strengthens. Before the man appears strong to the world, he becomes strong to himself. A man who is steady holds 3 anchors within him: self-respect, disciplined will, and accurate thinking. Self-respect is the foundation. A man cannot be steady if he speaks to himself as though he were weak, incapable, or doomed. He must honor his own potential. He must look at his life and say, I am worthy of stability. I am worthy of command. Disciplined will is the second anchor. It is the ability to act in alignment with his decisions, even when fear presses upon him. The steady man does not collapse when difficulty arrives. He holds his course. He does not rush, react, or retreat. He moves with purpose. Accurate thinking is the third anchor. Fear produces distorted thought. Anxiety magnifies shadows into giants, but accurate thinking cuts through the noise. It allows the man to see clearly, judge wisely, and respond intelligently. With accurate thinking, he stands firm even when others panic. Steadiness is silent power. People feel it before they understand it. A man with inner steel enters a room and the atmosphere shifts, not because he demands attention, but because he carries direction. His presence speaks of order, certainty, and resolve. Your family will feel this change first. Your partner will notice that your reactions are calmer. Your tone becomes deeper, slower, more deliberate. Your children sense that the foundation beneath them is firm. They lean toward your steadiness and draw strength from it. Rivals sense it as well. A steady man cannot be provoked easily. He does not flinch under criticism. He does not crumble under unexpected pressure. Those who once tested him begin to retreat, for they can no longer shake him. Conflict dissolves because the steady man does not feed it with agitation. Fear dissolves when a man strengthens his will. Fear thrives only in a weak mental climate. When the will becomes disciplined, fear loses its footing. It cannot rule a man who stands firmly upon his own decisions. This is the law. Problems lose power when a man refuses to bend. Life respects the unshakable. There is a profound truth here. Steadiness saves decades. A man who collapses at every difficulty wastes years recovering from crises that a steady man dismisses with calm reasoning. Weakness magnifies trouble. Steadiness dissolves it. A steady man avoids emotional collapse. He does not make decisions in panic. He does not rush into mistakes. He does not retreat into regret. He moves according to principle, not impulse. This alone saves him 20 years of error. Rockefeller once said that his greatest advantage was not opportunity, but calmness. While others acted out of fear, he acted from reason. While others gambled with their future, he shaped his future with quiet calculation. Calmness is not softness. It is strength under perfect control. A man who is steady becomes interesting to opportunity. Employers trust him. Partners rely on him. Leaders notice him. He becomes the man others seek when pressure grows because he remains composed when others falter. Such steadiness is visible. It appears in the way he stands, upright, aligned without rush. It appears in the way he speaks, measured, thoughtful, confident. It appears in his eyes, focused, serene, unwavering. A man with inner steel earns respect without demanding it. His actions speak, his conduct speaks, his presence speaks. But steadiness does not grow in comfort. It grows under pressure. The man must willingly step into controlled challenge. He must train himself to remain calm when life attempts to disturb his spirit. This is how the will becomes disciplined. The rising man practices stillness. He sits with his thoughts until they align. He speaks slowly when emotion tempts him to speak quickly. He acts with intention when stress tempts him to act impulsively. In these small victories, inner steel is forged. Steadiness gives birth to a new identity, the man who does not shake. Once this identity forms, life responds differently. Trouble no longer pursues him because trouble seeks the weak, not the strong. Difficulty seeks a target. The steady man presents none. Imagine yourself steady to this degree. Imagine walking through challenges with a calm heart. Imagine responding to pressure with clear judgment. Imagine your family watching you with admiration as you move through difficulty without fear. This identity changes everything. Your work improves because your mind is clear. Your decisions strengthen because your emotions are anchored. Your future opens because others trust you. Your home stabilizes because you become the stable center. A steady man becomes the axis around which order forms. People gather around him because he gives certainty in a world full of unstable men. They rely on him because his conduct is consistent. They respect him because he carries authority without arrogance. Fear cannot root itself in such a man. Doubt cannot hold on to his mind. Anxiety cannot lower his strength. He does not react to conditions. He governs them through ordered thought. When a man becomes steady, a transformation unfolds quietly within him. He becomes larger in spirit. He rises in dignity. He gains a weight of presence that cannot be shaken by circumstance. Steadiness is not merely emotional maturity. It is power in its purest form. It is the force that separates a man who is ruled by his life from the man who governs his life. Affirm this truth: my will is steady, therefore life cannot shake me. A man cannot fight his way out of every difficulty. Some battles are won not by force, but by altitude. When a man rises high enough in thought, the problem that once terrified him becomes too small to threaten him. The mind must climb before the life can climb. This is the beginning of mental ascension. Mental ascension is not mystery, it is discipline. It is the act of lifting your inner viewpoint above the region where fear, doubt, and confusion reside. The lower region of the mind is crowded with old worries, past failures, and weak habits. A man remains trapped there until he learns to rise deliberately. To ascend in mind is to climb to a clearer air where thought is sharp, will is strong, and judgment is unclouded. From this height, the world looks different. Pressure becomes manageable. Setbacks become signals. Uncertainty becomes direction. Everything changes when the viewpoint rises. Few men ever rise because they believe they must first escape their problems. But the wise man escapes not by running outward, but by climbing inward. He rises until the problem remains below him. No fear can reach the man who has climbed above it. No difficulty can overwhelm a mind that stands higher than its troubles. There are 7 steps of mental ascension, and each step lifts a man out of the region where weakness thrives. These steps are not complicated. They are not beyond the reach of any earnest man. They require only discipline and repetition. Step 1. Break the lower thought pattern. A man cannot rise while allowing the same thoughts that weakened him to circulate without resistance. He must interrupt the lower rhythm. He must catch the fear as it enters, name it, and refuse it. Space 1. Interruption of doubt is a victory. One victory begins the climb. Step 2. Declare elevation. No man rises accidentally. He rises because he speaks it into motion. To declare, I rise above this, is to begin the ascent. A spoken declaration imprints itself upon the subconscious, and the subconscious begins to support the upward direction. Words are ladders when spoken with conviction. Step 3. Adopt an elevated thought. A man must choose the thought that represents the height he wishes to reach. It may be confidence, clarity, purpose, or peace. Once chosen, he must hold it as a captain holds a compass. The mind follows the direction of its dominant thought. Elevation requires a thought worthy of height. Step 4. Build identity from the higher position. Once the elevated thought is accepted, the man must begin to think as though he already stands at the height he seeks. He must reason from strength, not weakness. Decisions made from weakness keep him low. Decisions made from strength lift him higher. Step 5. Act from altitude. A man who rises must act like a man who has risen. He must speak calmly, choose wisely, and move with dignity. Action reinforces identity. Identity reinforces thought, and thought reinforces altitude. Every elevated action strengthens the ascent. Step 6. Hold the height. The mind may attempt to descend, for old fears cling to familiar ground, but the rising man must refuse to drop back to the lower region. He must guard his altitude. He must reject the thoughts that attempt to pull him downward. Height becomes permanent through vigilance. Step 7. Expand the viewpoint. When a man holds his height long enough, his vision expands. He sees paths he could not see before. Ideas appear that were invisible at lower levels. New associations, new opportunities, new strategies arise. Height brings clarity, and clarity multiplies growth. Carnegie used mental ascension before he had a single dollar to his name, As a young boy in the mills, he refused to think like a mill worker. He thought like a leader long before he became one. He spoke with purpose. He walked with direction. Though his wage was small, his altitude was high. Edison practiced mental ascension during his early failures. When his experiments collapsed, he rose above the collapse in thought. He said, "I have discovered another way that does not work." That sentence was not denial. It was ascent. Each failure became a step upward because he refused to reason from the lower region. Henry Ford thought from altitude when his first automobiles broke apart, when investors mocked him, when early factories struggled. He held the higher vision. He rose above every difficulty because he kept his thought anchored to the height he intended to reach. Mental ascension saves years. A man who remains in the lower region spends decades wrestling with problems that could be dissolved by one rise in thought confusion, fear, uncertainty. These are not obstacles. They are signals that the mind is standing too low. A man becomes trapped when he attempts to solve problems from the same level where the problems were created. Rising in thought gives him an entirely new set of tools, insights, and strategies. Height reveals solutions hidden from those who refuse to climb. There is a difference between horizontal motion and vertical motion. Horizontal motion is effort without elevation. It is the endless activity of a man who stays low while trying to run his way out of difficulty. He works harder but remains overwhelmed because his perspective never rises. Vertical motion is the disciplined upward climb. It is the moment a man stops exhausting himself with sideways struggle and lifts his mind above the chaos. From this height, one wise action replaces 1,000 frantic motions. Mental ascension is the foundation of mastery. A man who rises above his fear stops negotiating with it. He stops reacting to the world and begins directing it. He stops allowing circumstances to shape him and begins shaping circumstances. This is the practice of upper thought. Upper thought is thinking from the version of yourself that is already strong, already clear, already disciplined. It is thinking from altitude rather than weakness. It is deciding from height rather than hesitation. When a man practices upper thought, his problems lose their teeth. They cannot bite into a consciousness standing above them. He no longer asks, "What will happen to me?" Instead, he asks, "What must I do from where I stand?" His power increases because his perspective has risen. This rise in thought affects his entire environment. His family notices that his speech becomes calm and directed. His children see that he is no longer shaken by small inconveniences. His partner feels safer, for she senses that he is thinking from strength. A rising man strengthens his home through his presence alone. Mental ascension changes how others see him. Employers recognize new reliability. Colleagues trust his judgment. Rivals grow uneasy, for they cannot intimidate a man whose mind stands above their reach. Opportunity is drawn to altitude. Difficulty avoids it. A man who ascends in mind becomes a magnet for clarity. He wastes no time on emotional traps, petty conflicts, or fear-driven decisions. Every choice he makes is elevated, and elevation compounds. 1 year of ascension is equal to 10 years of ordinary struggle. When the mind rises, the life rises. When the thought lifts, the future lifts. When the inner altitude increases, the outer world reorganizes itself accordingly. This is why mental ascension is the great shortcut. It saves a man 20 years of confusion. Mental ascension transforms a man's relationship with adversity. Instead of resisting it, he outgrows it. Instead of fearing it, he studies it from above. Instead of collapsing, he climbs. Adversity becomes the very fuel that sharpens his strength. Imagine yourself rising to this height. Imagine thinking from the version of yourself who no longer trembles. Imagine walking into each day with an elevated mind, untouched by the noise beneath you. Imagine the freedom of feeling stronger than any problem that approaches. Affirm this truth. My mind climbs higher each day, therefore I outgrow every obstacle. A man may change his habits and still remain weak. He may change his schedule and still remain doubtful. He may change his surroundings and still remain fragile. For no change is lasting until the man changes the identity from which he thinks, decides, and acts. Identity is destiny. A man rises or falls according to the image he holds of himself. If he sees himself as one who struggles, he will live in struggle. If he sees himself as one whom problems can break, they will break him. But if he sees himself as the man who stands above difficulty, life must rearrange itself around that identity. A man must become in spirit the thing he desires to be in fact. Before the world can treat him as strong, he must treat himself as strong. Before circumstances honor him, he must honor his own potential. Identity precedes fortune. Andrew Carnegie built his identity long before he owned anything. As a young messenger boy, he told himself, "I am rising." He studied language, business, and people with the seriousness of a man preparing for leadership. Though his wages were small, his identity was vast. The world could not keep him small because he refused to see himself that way. Charles Schwab carried an identity of assurance even when he held no rank. His employer once said, "I promoted him before I understood why. I simply trusted him." That trust was drawn not from achievement, but from identity. Schwab walked with the bearing of a man who would soon lead. Edward Bach transformed himself from a timid office boy into an influential editor by first changing who he believed himself to be. He wrote letters to powerful men, studied their methods, observed their conduct, and adopted their manner of thought. He became in thought long before he became in fact. Identity is not fiction. It is the internal command that governs the subconscious, and the subconscious governs behavior, tone, presence, and ultimately, destiny. A man cannot rise above the identity he clings to. He must construct the man he seeks to become. This construction requires two tools, repetition and conviction. The subconscious accepts only what is repeated with emotional certainty. A man who repeats, "I am strong," but feels weak, builds nothing. But a man who repeats, "I rise above all that once troubled me," while feeling the pull of greatness, plants a seed that cannot die. Identity construction begins with speech. A rising man speaks to himself with firmness, not apology. He declares what he is becoming, not what he fears he is. His speech becomes his blueprint. His words shape his character. His declarations carry the weight of command. From speech, the transformation extends into thought. He thinks from the viewpoint of the man he is becoming. When problems arise, he asks, "How would the stronger version of me see this?" He reasons from his future, not his past. This single shift saves years of misjudgment. This new identity alters his posture. When a man believes he is rising, his shoulders lift, his breath deepens, his movements become deliberate. He carries himself with dignity. Others sense it before he speaks. A rising identity radiates through the body. Identity sharpens judgment. The old identity was reactive, emotional, unstable. The new identity is deliberate, calm, and clear. Decisions become easier because the man knows who he is becoming. Choices align with purpose, not with fear. Identity changes the company he keeps. Weak identities attract weak associations. Strong identities attract strong ones. As the man rises, he becomes uncomfortable among the faint-hearted. He seeks those who think boldly, act decisively, and carry themselves with authority. Identity attracts opportunity. Employers, partners, and leaders can feel when a man has changed internally. They notice the strength in his voice, the steadiness in his eyes, the certainty in his conduct. They trust him without knowing why. His identity speaks louder than his resume. Identity protects a man from old patterns. When the new identity is strong, the man no longer thinks like the one who struggled. He no longer fears like the one who hesitated. He no longer retreats like the one who doubted. The old patterns lose their grip because the old man they relied upon no longer exists. This is the untouchable identity, a state in which trouble cannot reach the man, not because life becomes easier, but because he becomes greater. Problems attempt to enter, but they find no weakness in which to anchor. Fear approaches, but it finds no doorway. The man becomes larger than anything that once discouraged him. He becomes a mountain, and problems become passing clouds. He becomes a pillar, and difficulties become brief shadows. He becomes too elevated for trouble to reach. Constructing the untouchable identity begins with the rejection of the old self. The man must stop thinking from the identity of the man who struggled. He must stop excusing himself with former stories. He must strip away the identity of fear, weakness, and drift. Then he must adopt the identity of a man who rises above all difficulty. He must speak, act, walk, and decide from this identity. He must hold it with devotion until it becomes natural. Repetition makes the identity real. A rising identity transforms a man's household. His spouse sees the change before anyone else. She notices the calm in his voice, the steadiness in his behavior, the certainty he carries even on difficult days. She begins to trust him more deeply because he trusts himself. His children learn courage by watching him. They see their father standing firm, thinking clearly, facing problems with strength. His identity becomes their inheritance. They learn strength not by lectures, but by example. His colleagues respond differently. They trust him because he is trustworthy. They follow him because he knows where he is going. They rely on his counsel because it comes from clarity. His identity commands respect. Rivals grow uneasy. They sense that the man no longer trembles. They see that he no longer responds to provocation. They feel the weight of his rising spirit. They realize he is no longer vulnerable. A strong identity unsettles those who thrive on weakness. Identity determines reactions. The old identity was startled by criticism. The new identity evaluates it calmly. The old identity avoided challenge. The new identity welcomes it as an opportunity to rise. The old identity felt overwhelmed. The new identity feels unmoved. Identity determines habits. The rising man wakes earlier, speaks with intention, plans his days, controls his thoughts, and honors his commitments. These habits do not require force. They flow naturally from who he believes himself to be. Identity determines standards. The rising man refuses behaviors he once tolerated. He holds himself to a higher level of conduct. He rejects mediocrity. He avoids gossip, complaint, and emotional outbursts. He carries himself like one preparing for leadership. Identity determines destiny. The man who believes he is rising becomes unstoppable. The man who believes he is strong cannot be broken. The man who believes he is unshakable cannot be moved. Life honors the man who honors himself. This rise is permanent. No hardship can pull down a man whose identity stands above difficulty. Even when storms strike, he remains composed. Even when setbacks occur, he remains focused. Identity becomes his shield. Imagine yourself as this man. Imagine standing before your challenges with calm power. Imagine moving through life with dignity, confidence, and order. Imagine feeling untouchable, not because life is easy, but because you are immovable. Your identity is your greatest weapon. It is the source of your rise. It is the foundation of your future. It is the shield that protects your spirit. When identity rises, your entire life ascends with it. Affirm this truth with conviction. I become the man trouble cannot touch. There comes a time in a man's journey when rising is no longer an act. It becomes his nature. He does not lift himself from difficulty because he is in trouble, but because height has become his rightful place. Trouble may approach, but it finds him standing too high to reach. To live at such a height is not arrogance, it is order. It is the proper state of a man who has disciplined his mind, steadied his will, strengthened his identity, and learned the law governing all ascent. When these forces unite, they create a level of consciousness untouched by fear. A man at height is not removed from the world. He simply stands above the turmoil that once captured him. He hears the noise of the lower mind, but does not descend into it. He sees the storms forming on the horizon, but does not fear their arrival. His thought remains calm, his spirit remains steady, and his decisions remain directed. This state is what I call dominant height, a level of inner elevation so firm that life cannot pull the man downward. The man becomes the fixed point in his world. Circumstances revolve around him, not over him. He becomes the axis upon which his environment turns. To reach dominant height is rare, but to maintain it is rarer still. Most men climb once, collapse, climb again, collapse again. They rise occasionally, but live mostly in descent. They do not understand that height must be protected by discipline. Dominant height is built upon three practices: high-level thought, daily purpose declaration, and evening correction. These practices are the pillars that keep a man above the region where fear operates. High-level thought each morning lifts the mind before the day attempts to push it down. A rising man does not wait for the world to tell him how to feel. He declares his posture before events can shape him. He wakes with a clear intention. I stand above whatever the day brings. This morning elevation gives him a view of his life from strength, not from weakness. He sees opportunities quickly. He senses misdirection early. He chooses wisely because he sees clearly. Height sharpens judgment. The second pillar is daily purpose declaration. A man who rises must give his mind a direction each day. He must speak aloud the purpose that governs his life. Purpose becomes his compass. Without it, even a strong man drifts downward. Purpose declaration is not mere recitation. It is the reaffirmation of identity. It tells the subconscious, I know who I am and I know where I am going. This declaration keeps the mind fixed at altitude. The third pillar is evening correction, the practice of reviewing the day without guilt, without shame, without emotional collapse. The rising man examines his conduct with accuracy. He does not hide from his weaknesses, he strengthens them. He does not condemn his errors, he corrects them. Evening correction keeps the man aligned. It prevents dissent. It ensures that each day ends with improvement rather than regret. In 5 years, this practice alone can elevate a man beyond anything he imagines. Consider how these practices shaped history. Lincoln maintained height through deliberate stillness. Even in the midst of war, he sought quiet moments to steady his spirit. That stillness kept him operating from altitude. Without it, the pressures of the nation would have crushed him. Rockefeller practiced mental altitude during the darkest financial terrors. While men panicked, he stood above the panic. He made decisions not from fear, but from calm reasoning. That height turned crises into opportunities. Henry Ford remained at altitude despite ridicule, failure, and opposition. He saw his future long before it existed. When others doubted him, he held the high viewpoint. Height gave him patience. Patience gave him triumph. To live at height is to look upon difficulty from a superior position. The problem does not change, but the man does. When the man becomes larger, the problem becomes smaller. When the man stands higher, the problem stands lower. Height gives a man immunity to discouragement. Discouragement only grips a man who stands close enough for its hands to reach him. Rise above discouragement, and it becomes powerless. It cannot speak to you, for your mind has moved beyond its language. Height gives a man clarity in chaos. Confusion thrives in the lower regions where the mind is scattered. But at altitude, clarity reigns. A single elevated thought cuts through noise that once caused paralysis. Height gives a man calm during conflict. When others act from agitation, he acts from inner order. He does not fight battles beneath him. He chooses his engagements wisely. His calmness intimidates those who rely on noise. Height gives a man certainty in uncertainty. He may not know the full path, but he knows the direction. He may not see every step, but he sees the summit. Certainty is not the absence of mystery. It is the presence of direction. Height gives a man power over his environment. Weak men are shaped by surroundings. Strong men shape their surroundings. At altitude, he becomes the influence rather than being influenced. Most important of all, height gives a man freedom from old fears. Fear resides below. It cannot cling to a man who no longer stands near it. When the man rises high enough, fear falls away like a garment no longer worn. To stay at height, a man must protect his mind from 4 sources of dissent: lower emotions, lower associations, lower speech, and lower habits. Lower emotions, fear, envy, resentment, pull the mind downward. The rising man meets these emotions with accuracy. He observes them without surrender. He holds his altitude by refusing to be ruled by the lower climate. Lower associations, men who complain, gossip, or drift, attempt to pull him down through their influence. He must choose his company wisely. A rising man cannot remain long among those who refuse to rise. Lower speech weakens identity. A man who speaks of limitation is building his own chains. His words must match the height he seeks. He must speak with calm certainty, not gloom or doubt. Lower habits drain strength. Late rising, idle distraction, scattered focus. These habits keep a man low. At height, habits must support elevation. Discipline becomes nourishment for the spirit. Living at height transforms the home. A man at height rarely raises his voice because his authority is calm. His spouse feels safer because the man is steady. His children grow stronger because they learn by witnessing strength. The atmosphere of the home lifts because the foundation has risen. Living at height transforms work. Assignments that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Conflict becomes opportunity. Pressure becomes fuel. The rising man becomes the one others rely on. His influence expands because his clarity is uncommon. Living at height transforms finances. A mind at altitude makes fewer mistakes. It sees long-term gain instead of short-term escape. It invests wisely. It avoids impulsive decisions. Wealth grows naturally when the mind is not cluttered by fear. Living at height transforms self-respect. The rising man looks in the mirror and sees someone he can follow. He sees dignity. He sees direction. He sees a man growing beyond his former limitations. Self-respect becomes the engine of further ascent. The man at height does not mock his past self. He honors the struggle that brought him here. But he does laugh at the fears that once dominated him, not because the fears were foolish, but because he has become so strong that they now appear small. At height, the world treats him differently. His presence commands attention without effort. His words carry weight without force. His conduct inspires quiet respect. Even his silence becomes meaningful. Trouble that once crushed him now bounces off him harmlessly. Criticism that once discouraged him now teaches him. Setbacks that once delayed him now redirect him. He becomes invulnerable, not because life improves, but because he becomes greater. This is the man who walks through storms while remaining dry. This is the man who carries calmness through chaos. This is the man who looks at former worries and wonders how they ever frightened him. This height is not temporary. It can become permanent. A man who holds his altitude long enough begins to see himself as one who belongs there. Identity solidifies. Confidence becomes effortless. Purpose becomes instinct. The untouchable man is not one who avoids problems. He is one who rises above them. His strength is not force. It is elevation. His power is not aggression. It is presence. His mastery is not domination. It is composure. Imagine yourself living at this height. Imagine waking each day with a calm spirit. Imagine moving through difficulty without fear. Imagine speaking with authority and thinking with clarity. Imagine feeling in every part of your being that nothing on earth can touch your peace. This is the promise of ascent. When a man rises high enough, nothing can touch him. Affirm this truth with unwavering conviction. Nothing can touch me because I stand above all that once weakened me. If you expect me to reveal the entire philosophy in the first breath, I will disappoint you. Not because I wish to withhold it, but because great wealth has never opened itself to the man who listens casually. What I'm about to tell you can change your life completely, but only if your mind is prepared to receive it. There exists a pattern that every wealthy man I ever studied followed, whether he began with fortune or nothing but his hands. I have seen laborers rise above merchants, clerks rise above owners, and men with nothing but a worn coat build empires that shook the nation. They did not rise by chance. They rose because they learned the law. I will tell you this law. I will tell you everything, but not yet. For if I place the treasure in your hands before you understand its weight, you will treat it as lightly as you have treated every dream you once swore you would pursue. And nothing kills wealth faster than a man who treats its foundation as entertainment. Think now of the years you have struggled, the late nights staring at numbers that do not add up, the mornings when you rose with determination only to return home defeated by the same problems you faced the year before. The quiet shame you felt when you looked at your family and thought, I should be providing more. You are not alone. Thousands live this same cycle: hard work, small return, rising worry, quiet disappointment. The world teaches that wealth is reserved for the connected, the educated, the fortunate. But I spent my life studying those who proved otherwise, men who began where you stand now, with ordinary incomes, uncertain futures, and minds burdened by fear. I think of Henry Ford, who started as a simple machinist, earning barely enough to support a household. Yet he held within him a desire so definite that even poverty could not suppress it. He studied his craft after hours, built crude machines in dimly lit rooms, and refused to surrender to the ridicule of those who called him foolish. Years later, the world bowed to his vision. I think of Andrew Carnegie, who began as a poor bobbin boy earning a few coins a week. Yet inside him lived a fire no small job could extinguish. He used every spare moment to learn, to think, to plan. He outgrew his wage, outgrew his station, and built a fortune so vast that history still trembles beneath its memory. I think also of the countless unnamed men I met, clerks, salesmen, apprentices, who rose not because of opportunity, but because they decided opportunity would no longer ignore them. Their stories are not famous, yet they stand as proof that the law I'm about to reveal works for any man who obeys it. Your own life may not feel remarkable now, but neither did theirs. They too had families to support. They too wondered how they would afford the winter. They too felt the pressure of wanting to be more than their paycheck allowed. But they made one choice, a choice that altered the very direction of their existence. And that choice can become yours. Before I reveal anything further, I want you to imagine something, the life you secretly hunger for. A life where money no longer casts a shadow over your home. A life where your children look at you with admiration because you are no longer a man drowning in stress, but one who commands his days with confidence. A life where your spouse, once worried about the future, now walks with ease at your side. Picture the relief you would feel waking each morning knowing you are building wealth, not chasing it. Picture the pride of watching your savings grow, your debts disappear, your opportunities multiply. Picture the day your rivals, those who once doubted you, must face the uncomfortable truth that you have surpassed them. This future is not a fantasy. It is the natural result of applying the law. But most men never reach it because they rush past the foundation. They want the secret without the preparation. They want the result without the transformation. They want the wealth without the discipline of understanding what creates it. This is why I cannot give you everything at once. Not because I wish to tease you, but because if you miss a single sentence that precedes the law itself will fail you. Wealth is not a game of luck. It is a structure. Remove one supporting beam and the whole structure collapses. There is something else you must know. A man becomes wealthy not on the day he receives money, but on the day he receives a new identity. Wealth is first a thought, then a decision, then a discipline, long before it becomes a possession. Most men fail not because they lack opportunity, but because they remain the same man while asking for a different life. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you promised to change? How many times have you said you would save, invest, improve, work differently, think differently, yet return to the same habits that kept you small? Wealth does not answer promises. It answers direction. And that is why you must listen closely. For I will reveal a direction powerful enough to shift the path of your entire life, but only if your attention is sharp. Miss one sentence, and the force weakens. Miss 1 minute, and the meaning dissolves. Miss the foundation, and the entire structure becomes worthless. Think now of your future self. 5 years from today, he exists, and he is either living in the same circumstances you know too well, or he is living in the rewards of the law you are about to hear. He may be wealthy, respected, confident, and at peace, or he may be burdened, anxious, and wondering when his life will finally change. Which version will greet you? The answer depends on how you listen in the next few minutes, for the law I am about to give you has created fortunes so astounding that historians still study them. It has lifted men from rags to riches, from obscurity to influence, from hopelessness to triumph. If you desire wealth, true wealth, lasting wealth, you must remain with me. Do not drift. Do not allow your mind to wander. Every word that follows is a stepping stone toward the life you hunger for. Skip one, and you stumble. Hear them all, and the path becomes clear. Stay with me, and I will tell you everything. Everything that the wealthy practice. Everything that lifts a man from little to much. Everything that turns desire into dollars, ideas into empires, and ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. Listen well, for what I am about to reveal has the power to change the very direction of your destiny. Wealth never begins in the hands. It begins in the mind that has been shaped for it. A man may labor from sunrise to dusk and still remain poor if his thoughts remain undisciplined. But another man, working no harder, rises because he has trained his mind to receive the idea of wealth long before a single dollar arrives. A mind must be softened before new truth can be planted. If the soil is hard, even the finest seed lies dead upon it. This is why so many men hear the principles of wealth, yet change nothing. Their minds resist the seed. They want the harvest while refusing the preparation that makes harvest possible. I observed this in the workshops of Henry Ford. He was an ordinary machinist, yet his thoughts were never ordinary. When his work was finished, he did not seek distraction. He studied engines, sketched designs, repaired machines, others considered hopeless. He was preparing his mind for the fortune that would one day obey him. Andrew Carnegie did the same. As a young telegraph boy, he memorized every code, learned the habits of business leaders, and absorbed wisdom from each person above him. He was earning pennies, yet forming the mind of a millionaire. His wage was small, but his preparation was immense. Edward Bach followed this pattern as well. He worked in small offices for small pay, yet every evening he studied the craft of publishing. He did not wait to be promoted before preparing. He prepared to become valuable long before he had proof the world would ever reward him. These men had something in common. They understood that wealth must enter the mind before it can enter life. They knew that a mind without readiness wastes opportunities that would make another man wealthy. Many men receive chances without recognizing them, for their eyes have not been trained to see. The unprepared mind looks at opportunity and sees burden. The prepared mind looks at the same opportunity and sees advancement. That single difference separates the struggling from the rising. A man does not attract wealth by chance. He attracts it by the weight of his inner preparation. This is why I teach the law of inner weight. A man whose thoughts carry weight pulls greater chances into his orbit. People sense it. Circumstances respond to it. Employers trust it. Even rivals feel it. Wealth moves toward the man whose mind carries the gravity of purpose. Before the world notices this change, the household notices it. A man's family feels the shift long before the world announces it. His tone becomes sharper, his movements more deliberate, his decisions steadier. His spouse senses he is no longer drifting. His children watch him with new curiosity. This early shift is not yet wealth. It is preparation for wealth, yet it reshapes everything. A prepared mind becomes harder to deceive, harder to discourage, harder to derail. Confusion fades, clarity strengthens, and clarity saves time, years of time, because it protects a man from useless labor. Preparation saves decades. I say this without exaggeration. A single year of disciplined mental readiness can save 10 wasted years of wandering. A man who sharpens his mind gains judgment. Judgment removes error. And error is what consumes most of a man's life. I watched men in mills and factories spend 30 years repeating the same mistakes. They labored without thought, survived without learning, existed without purpose. They repeated the same dull year until life had nothing more to offer them. Not because they lacked intelligence, but because they never prepared their minds to rise. Mental readiness shortens the distance between desire and achievement. It gives a man tools that others do not possess. The trained mind sees patterns in chaos. It detects advantage where others see obstacles. It senses direction where others feel lost. Wealth trusts such a mind. A prepared mind does not beg for opportunity. It creates it. Even in ordinary surroundings, it begins shaping small avenues of advancement. It studies. It listens. It observes. It extracts meaning from every experience. And in doing so, it becomes too valuable to remain unnoticed. This quiet preparation often begins after work, during hours most men waste. This is where the future is formed. Ford built his ideas in the dim corners of workshops. Carnegie learned finance by reading after others slept. Bach trained his understanding when others surrendered to fatigue. These extra hours form the foundation of wealth, not because they produce immediate results, but because they shape the mind into a vessel capable of holding greater responsibility. Wealth demands responsibility. Without preparation, responsibility crushes a man. With preparation, it refines him. But preparation is not merely study. It is self-control, clarity of purpose, and the shaping of daily habits. A man prepares by deciding what he wants and refusing to permit his mind to drift from it. Direction strengthens the mind like repeated training strengthens a muscle. Once a man's thoughts become definite, they begin to attract definite opportunities. This law has never failed. The man of purpose becomes a magnet. Employers trust him. Partners seek him. Mentors guide him. Even strangers sense that his life is moving somewhere important. The unprepared mind remains blind to these motions. It wonders why others rise while it remains small. It blames conditions, luck, or unfairness. It never suspects that the fault lies within. For without mental readiness, nothing good can remain in a man's life long enough to build upon. Preparation sharpens judgment. A man who has sharpened judgment makes decisions quickly and correctly. Decisions determine the course of years. One good decision can erase 10 years of drift. One poor decision can delay progress a decade. Mental readiness ensures the first and protects from the second. This is why I urge you to take this moment seriously. You are preparing your mind not for entertainment, but for transformation. What you absorb now can alter the course of your life. If you treat these principles lightly, they will disappear like smoke. If you treat them with gravity, they will stay with you forever. As you prepare, you will notice changes within yourself. You will feel irritation toward wasted time. You will feel discomfort with disorder. You will sense a new seriousness in your spirit. These are signs that the mind is awakening to its true capacity. Such feelings mark the beginning of wealth. Mental readiness is not glamorous. It is quiet, private, and unseen. Yet it forms the root system from which great fortunes grow. Without roots, no structure stands. Without grounded thought, no wealth remains. The rising man strengthens these roots long before he sees fruit. A prepared mind creates stability. It is not swayed by every fear. It is not shattered by every setback. It possesses a calmness that prosperity recognizes. Wealth flows toward calmness. Fortune avoids chaos. A man with steady thoughts becomes a sanctuary for the responsibilities wealth brings. You must understand this. Wealth is attracted to order. It is drawn to purpose. It obeys the man who has mastered himself. But it cannot remain in the life of a man who is driven by disorder. It finds no footing in a mind filled with drift. It escapes from hands that have not been trained to hold it. When you prepare your mind, you discipline your future. You shorten your journey. You remove the errors that steal years from a man's life. You strengthen the qualities that opportunity seeks. You become someone wealth can trust. The world does not reward the man who hopes for wealth. It rewards the man who becomes worthy of it. And so I give you the first affirmation. Speak it with steadiness, not haste. My mind becomes worthy of wealth before wealth becomes worthy of me. Let it settle. Let it strengthen something within you. Let it begin the quiet work of preparation. A man's wage reflects only the value he has already proved, not the value he is capable of becoming. Most men never understand this simple truth. They stare at their wage as though it were a judgment upon their worth, never realizing that it is only a temporary measure of their present usefulness. The wage is not the ceiling, it is the starting point. If a man ties his identity to his wage, he condemns himself to a life no larger than the numbers printed on his payslip. But if he ties his identity to the value he is becoming, he begins the ascent that wealth cannot resist. Wealth follows value as surely as a shadow follows form. The rise begins long before the world acknowledges it. In every study I conducted, every man who climbed from nothing to abundance did so by increasing his usefulness beyond what his wage required. This was not a matter of working harder in a frantic fashion. It was the deliberate decision to become indispensable. The world rewards indispensability because it trusts the man who supplies it. Consider Henry Ford. Before the world spoke his name, he was merely one machinist among many. Yet his supervisors felt something different about him. He did not ask what he should do next. He found what needed to be done. He learned the intricacies of every task around him. He rose because usefulness pulled him upward. Andrew Carnegie did the same. While other boys rushed home when the day ended, he stayed to understand the workings of the office, the machinery of the telegraph, the habits of successful men. He learned enough to outgrow each role quickly. His wage could not hold him because his value increased faster than any employer could measure. Thomas Edison rose by mastering tasks that others avoided. Those tasks were often tedious, inconvenient, or uncertain, but each skill increased his worth. He became a man who could solve problems few understood. Such a man cannot remain in small positions for long. Opportunity hunts him down. This rising value is seldom noticed at first. I call it silent excellence, the form of growth that begins quietly within the man, long before any outward reward appears. Silent excellence does not boast. It does not announce itself. It simply grows until the world can no longer ignore it. A man's household senses this change sooner than anyone else. His speech becomes firmer. His movements gain precision. His decisions carry weight. His posture communicates readiness instead of resignation. The family may not yet see wealth, but they sense the man becoming wealth's natural owner. The workplace notices later. The employer sees a man he can trust with greater responsibility. Colleagues recognize reliability and steadiness. Rivals feel discomfort as they sense a new seriousness forming in him. This is how value multiplies. It is not dramatic, it is steady, and steadiness eventually forces recognition. Usefulness compounds. One small new skill may seem insignificant in a day, but powerful over a year. 10 years of usefulness built deliberately can lift a man from obscurity to influence the man who relies only on his wage wastes decades waiting for others to lift him. The man who increases his usefulness lifts himself. Imagine the difference between two workers. One performs his duties well enough to avoid complaints. He does only what he is paid for. He waits for instructions. He remains comfortable. 10 years later, he stands where he began. His wage changes little because he has changed little. The other worker treats every task as a chance to expand his abilities. He learns processes outside his immediate role. He studies the weaknesses in the system. He improves the accuracy of his work. He becomes the man others depend on. 10 years later, he is far above the position he once held. His rise is not luck, it is law. A man becomes valuable when he makes himself the answer to a problem others avoid. This does not require titles or large salaries. It requires awareness, thoughtful observation, and deliberate development. Every workplace contains gaps. Gaps in knowledge, gaps in reliability, gaps in leadership. The rising man steps into those gaps. You must understand that wealth observes conduct, not conversation. The man who talks about advancement remains where he is. The man who conducts himself as one ready for advancement rises because his conduct sends a clear signal to those who watch him. Your employer may not express it openly, but he studies your habits. He judges your punctuality, your accuracy, your manner, your steadiness. He notices when a man becomes more serious than before. He notices when a man handles difficult tasks with quiet confidence. Such qualities are rare. They compel promotion. Your household studies you too. Your children observe how you carry yourself. They watch whether you meet challenges calmly or collapse under them. They see whether you use your evenings wisely or waste them without purpose. Their trust in your leadership grows when they see your value rising. Your spouse feels the difference in your presence. She senses the weight of your decisions. She recognizes the improvement in your judgment. She knows when you are becoming a man capable of guiding the future of the household. Her confidence strengthens because she feels the rising value, even before wealth arrives. Rising value expresses itself not through talk, but through character. You speak with clarity. You act with certainty. You complete tasks without delay. You take responsibility rather than seek excuses. You learn one new skill each season. You form a mind capable of holding larger duties. Such qualities create wealth. The greatest advantage in life belongs to the man who grows in usefulness each year. One new skill. A year creates a storehouse of power. 10 new skills in 10 years make a man dangerous to mediocrity and attractive to opportunity. A useful man cannot be ignored. A useful man becomes the backbone of every place he enters. Employers reward this because they cannot afford to lose such a man. Partners seek him because they trust his steadiness. Investors favor him because he has demonstrated reliability. Even competitors feel compelled to respect him. All of this arises from usefulness, not noise, not ambition, but value. A man must stop viewing his wage as the measure of his future. The wage is simply an exchange for the value already proven. The future wage will always rise to the level of the value he is becoming. If he increases his value daily, life has no choice but to increase his reward. This principle is so powerful that I urge you to take it seriously. If you increase your usefulness even slightly each week, the combined force of these gains will save you years of struggle. You will avoid the stagnation that traps most men for decades. You will rise because law demands that value be rewarded. The advancing man does not wait to be told what to do next. He sees what must be done and does it. He observes the weaknesses in his environment and strengthens them. He becomes the stabilizing force in every task he touches. Others come to rely on him. Reliability is currency. Remember this: the man who relies on extra hours alone cannot rise above those hours, but the man who increases the value of those hours rises far beyond them. It is not the time spent that matters. It is the growth gained. Usefulness multiplies itself. It expands into influence, and influence expands into opportunity. Let me speak plainly. If you want wealth, you must stop seeing yourself as one who waits for better treatment. You must see yourself as one who earns better treatment by becoming better. No employer can withhold reward from a man who becomes too valuable to lose. This is the law that lifted every fortune I ever studied. When you become more useful than your wage, life will rush to catch up with your worth. Promotions come. Roles expand. New opportunities appear. You will be offered positions that did not exist before. You will attract partners who see in you the traits of leadership. Your name will quietly move upward. Even if your present employer fails to recognize your worth, another employer will. Useful men are noticed. They are spoken of. They are recommended. They are remembered. Your value will find its place. The world cannot conceal a rising man. Let your daily conduct reflect the man you intend to become. Speak clearly, think accurately, act promptly, learn continually, serve with dignity. You will rise because you have made yourself one who deserves to rise. Wealth follows the man who carries himself with the character of wealth. Now speak the affirmation quietly, but with steadiness. My value rises each day, and life must raise my reward. Wealth is not an accident. It is the outward expression of an inner structure. Before riches form in a man's hands, they must first form in his thought, in his purpose, in his discipline, and in the quiet standards he keeps when no one is watching. Every fortune I ever studied shared the same foundation long before the world learned the names of the men who built them. A man who rises in the world does not do so because fate chooses him. He rises because he has shaped a mind that can carry the weight of success. Without inner structure, opportunity slips through the fingers. Without inner order, wealth becomes temporary. Without definite purpose, a man is pulled in 1,000 directions until his strength is wasted. This is why the wealthy and the powerful built themselves inwardly before they built anything outwardly. They constructed their thoughts like architects, carefully, deliberately, with a design that served a long future instead of a short impulse. They governed their minds long before they governed men or enterprises. I call these foundations the 4 pillars of wealth: directed thought, definite purpose, usefulness, identity. All outward prosperity hangs upon these pillars. If even one is weak, the structure trembles. If all 4 are strong, wealth becomes inevitable. Directed thought is the first pillar. The undirected mind drifts toward fear, toward indecision, toward the habits that keep a man small. But when a man takes control of his thought, he takes control of the forces that shape his life. Thought is the blueprint. Every action follows it. Every habit springs from it. Every result begins in the mold of thought. Carnegie mastered this pillar early. As a boy running errands, he controlled his thoughts with great precision. He refused to think of himself as a poor laborer, even though he was one. Instead, he directed his mind toward the man he intended to become. He held this picture steadily, and his conduct followed it. Directed thought created directed life. Definite purpose is the second pillar. A man without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. He may work hard, yet accomplish nothing. He may labor for decades, yet remain in the same circle. But the man with a definite purpose moves forward even in confusion, even in uncertainty, because purpose gives direction when conditions give none. Thomas Edison embodied this principle. His purpose was clearer than daylight. He pursued it relentlessly. When experiments failed, purpose carried him onward. When partners doubted him, purpose steadied him. When the world mocked him, purpose defended him. Such a man cannot be stopped because he refuses to stop. Usefulness is the third pillar. Wealth is attracted to those who solve problems, who create value, who bring improvement to every place they enter. A man becomes wealthy not by demanding reward, but by making himself worthy of reward. Usefulness is the mark of the advancing man. It is the evidence that he deserves greater responsibility. George Eastman rose through usefulness. He trained himself in photography during hours others wasted. His improvements in technique made a complex process simple for the public. His usefulness built a fortune and changed an entire industry. Wealth obeyed him because he became indispensable. Identity is the fourth pillar, and perhaps the most powerful. A man cannot rise higher than the image he holds of himself. If he secretly believes he is ordinary, his decisions will betray that belief. If he thinks himself unworthy of wealth, he will sabotage the very steps that could lead him to it. But when a man adopts the identity of a rising figure, his entire conduct shifts. Identity shapes posture, identity shapes tone, identity shapes courage, and courage shapes destiny. Consider Abraham Lincoln. Before he led a nation, he led himself. He built an identity of moral strength, steady judgment, and quiet force. This identity became the bedrock of his leadership. The nation felt his weight long before it understood his decisions. Identity gave him the authority to carry burdens that would have crushed other men. These four pillars form more than habits. They form a structure, an internal government. A man must learn to govern himself before he can govern circumstance. This is the law of internal government. Order within creates order without. Confusion within attracts confusion without. A man with inner unity walks through problems with a calmness that others lack. When a man lacks structure, he becomes a victim of his moods. When he has structure, he becomes a ruler of his days. Structure gives him steadiness. Steadiness gives him direction. Direction gives him progress. And progress gives him confidence. Confidence is not a gift. It is the natural result of witnessing one's own order. A man who keeps promises to himself develops self-respect. A man who governs his habits earns his own trust. A man who directs his thoughts becomes his own leader. When he becomes his own leader, others sense it. They respond to the authority in his bearing. The repetition of these pillars unites the mind. Repetition dissolves doubt. Repetition builds inner unity. Repetition transforms vague desire into definite belief. The man who repeats a truth with sincerity eventually becomes that truth. This is why I taught autosuggestion with such urgency. It is not magic. It is mental construction. Think of your own life. The moments you doubt yourself come from thoughts repeated without awareness. The moments you hesitate come from identity shaped unconsciously. The moments you drift come from purpose left undefined. Repetition has already shaped you. Now you must use repetition to reshape yourself. This inner structure saves time, years of time. Men wander for decades because they do not know who they are, what they want, or how they think. They chase every idea, pursue every whim, and wonder why nothing grows. But the man who erects these four pillars wastes nothing. His energy gathers, his direction strengthens, his results multiply. This is how decades of trial can be replaced with a few concentrated years of progress. Purpose removes hesitation. Directed thought removes confusion. Identity removes fear. Usefulness removes limitation. Together they compress time. They turn long journeys into shorter ones. They turn obstacles into stepping stones. Employers sense this inner structure immediately. They may not understand it, but they feel it. They give larger responsibilities to men who carry themselves with order. They promote those who remain steady under pressure. They trust those whose identity shows leadership. Co-workers sense it as well. They rely on the man who keeps his word. They respect the man who thinks clearly. They admire the man who works with calmness. They know he will not collapse when circumstances shift. Such a man creates stability in every place he stands. Rivals sense it most of all. A man with inner structure is difficult to unsettle. His calmness confuses those who attack him. His confidence unsettles those who compete with him. His decision weakens those who rely on his hesitation. They know they face someone who does not break easily. This inner structure alters the entire future. When a man builds it, he becomes the architect of his destiny. He no longer drifts into the future, he shapes it. He no longer hopes for a better life. He directs it. He no longer wonders what he should do. He knows. And knowledge saves years of wandering. Carnegie spent years building this internal order before he controlled vast industries. He developed judgment, discipline, clarity, and purpose. When opportunity arrived, he was ready. The unprepared man would have squandered such chances. The structured man multiplied them. The same is true for every figure I ever studied. Without internal order, opportunity collapses. Without definite purpose, wealth slips away. Without identity, a man retreats when pressure rises. But with these pillars in place, no pressure can break him. Wealth trusts the man who trusts himself. As you build this structure, you will notice subtle changes. You will think with greater precision. You will speak with greater authority. You will move with greater intention. You will feel a form of inner weight that gives strength to your presence. This weight is not heaviness, it is dignity. And dignity is one of the strongest forces in the world. People follow dignity. Employers promote dignity. Partners seek dignity. Wealth obeys dignity. Your aim is not simply to improve habits. It is to erect a structure within yourself so powerful that all your habits align with it. This structure becomes the invisible engine of your rise. Others see the results, but they do not see the foundation beneath them. You must build it daily. You must hold the blueprint in your thought. You must repeat the truths that strengthen it. You must guard your mind as a man guards a treasury. A careless moment can weaken the structure, but steady effort can make it unbreakable. Speak the affirmation now with calm certainty. I govern my mind, and my mind governs my fortune. A man's true rise does not occur during the hours for which he is paid. Those hours belong to his employer. His ascent begins when the day's wage has been earned and the world assumes he will rest. What he does in those quiet hours determines whether he advances or remains fixed in the same circle year after year. Ordinary men believe that the close of work marks the close of responsibility. They imagine that the evening was given for escape, for distraction, for idle relief. Yet those who climb beyond the ordinary treat the evening as sacred ground, the place where the future is shaped. They understand that the day pays the bills, but the evening builds the fortune. Henry Ford built his future in the hours others wasted. After long days spent repairing machinery, he studied engines by lamplight, dismantled devices no one else understood, and formed ideas that would one day change the world. His rise did not begin in the daylight of the factory. It began in the quiet of the night. Andrew Carnegie's ascent began the same way. He devoted his evenings to learning the telegraph codes, understanding business operations, and studying the habits of men who had achieved influence. He made the night his classroom. Each evening sharpened his mind, refined his judgment, and expanded his worth. His fortune was the result of many such evenings. John Wanamaker, before his name carried power, studied commerce deep into the evening. He observed customers, read books others ignored, and refined his understanding of human nature. His store, the first of its kind, was built upon insights gathered after work, when the mind could think without interruption. Even Edward Bach, who began with nothing, used his evenings to read the wisdom of great leaders, study language, and understand publishing. These disciplines shaped a mind capable of assuming the editor's chair of a major journal. Others saw only the position he eventually held. They never saw the evenings that forged him. These men understood a principle I call evening advancement. It is the habit of using the hours after one's daily work to develop the mind, study one's craft, plan one's future, and cultivate the qualities that opportunity recognizes. Without evening advancement, a man wastes the richest portion of his day. The evening offers a kind of silence that allows the mind to absorb truth more deeply. The noise of labor is gone. The demands of others fade. The man is left alone with himself. What he fills those hours with becomes the clearest expression of the future he is creating. There are 4 tools with which these hours must be shaped: study, creation, reflection, preparation. Study is the food of advancement. A man who studies after work becomes sharper than those who study only in youth. His mind remains alive. He acquires new abilities, new insights, new confidence. 1 hour of study each evening can raise a man above his peers within a year. Knowledge compounds when fed daily. Creation is the work of ideas: building, writing, experimenting, improving. This is where a man produces something that belongs to him alone. Employers may own his labor, but they cannot own his creativity. What he creates in the evening becomes the seed of future independence. Reflection is the quiet review of the day, examining his actions, decisions, errors, and successes. A man who reflects becomes wiser with each passing day. He recognizes patterns, avoids repeated mistakes, and strengthens habits that lead to progress. Reflection saves time by preventing the same error from stealing another year. Preparation is the setting of the next day before it arrives. It is the discipline of arranging one's thoughts, goals, and priorities to ensure that tomorrow serves the man rather than confuses him. Preparation gives direction. Direction saves years. Most men waste these hours. They surrender them to dullness. They allow fatigue to rule them. They drift into idle comforts, unaware that those comforts steal their years. They wake each morning with the same burdens because they never use the evening to lighten them. The rising man treats the evening as the classroom of his destiny. He uses these hours to build the skills that will raise his income long before any employer rewards him. He builds a mind that sees opportunities the unprepared man cannot detect. He builds confidence that holds him steady in moments that break others. A single disciplined evening can alter the course of a decade. 10 disciplined evenings can reshape a man's entire future. A year of disciplined evenings creates a mind and character so different from the average man that opportunity seeks him out. Consider how men drift for decades. They rise early, work hard, return home exhausted, and repeat the same cycle without improvement. Their evenings become a blur of unproductive habits. Their minds grow dull. Their ambitions fade. Their future collapses into the narrow path their past set for them. Now consider the man who uses his evenings well. He may work the same job during the day, but his future expands each night. He reads, he studies, he plans, he improves, he trains. His mind becomes sharper, his judgment deepens, his spirit strengthens. Over time, he rises far above men who worked no less hard, but grew no more wise. A man who develops himself after work becomes a different man than he was before work. This is how transformation occurs. He walks into the workplace the next day with more understanding, more confidence, and more potential than he possessed the day before. Others may not know why he appears different, but they feel it. The household benefits from this change. A man who uses his evenings wisely carries a sense of purpose into the home. He speaks with greater clarity. He moves with greater intention. His spouse senses his growth. His children observe his seriousness. They feel secure because he is building something more than survival. Children study their fathers. When they see a man spend his evenings in idle distraction, they learn that growth ends after adolescence. When they see a man devote his evenings to improvement, they learn that maturity is the beginning of mastery. They begin to expect more from themselves. The rising man sets an example that shapes the next generation. Evening advancement also protects a man from drift. When he fills his evenings with purpose, drift has no space to take root. Habits of thought remain sharp. Habits of strength remain active. A purposeful evening keeps the mind from wandering toward fear and doubt. Drift thrives in empty hours. It weakens men quietly, steals their confidence, and convinces them that nothing will change. But an evening filled with advancement builds momentum. That momentum carries into the next morning, creating cycles of progress rather than cycles of decline. The average man believes the evening belongs to relief. The rising man believes it belongs to creation. The average man sees it as rest after labor. The rising man sees it as preparation for greatness. This difference becomes enormous when measured over years. Let me speak of a truth most men never consider. You do not rise by changing your days alone. You rise by changing your evenings. Daylight hours are purchased by your employer. Evening hours belong to your destiny. Every great fortune was nurtured in the night. Every powerful idea was shaped when others slept. Every rising man used these hours to become too valuable for small roles. A man does not need extraordinary talent to rise. He needs extraordinary discipline in ordinary hours. Evening advancement gives him those hours. Let us consider the compounding effect. 1 hour a night becomes 7 hours a week. 7 hours a week becomes over 300 hours a year. 300 hours of concentrated study and creation will make a man unrecognizable to his former self. He will understand his field better than his peers. He will think more clearly. He will speak more confidently. He will solve problems others cannot grasp. He will carry himself with authority because he has earned it. The world rewards such a man because the world is in constant need of men who can think, decide, and create. Rare qualities are rewarded generously. Evening advancement makes those qualities possible for any man willing to claim them. Many of the most successful men in history began with nothing more than a desire to advance and the discipline to use their evenings wisely. They rose not because the world gave them an advantage, but because they refused to let their evenings slip away. Let me be clear. If you master your evenings, you save 10 years of your life. If you waste them, you lose 10 years. Evening advancement gives a man control over his destiny. He becomes the architect of his future rather than the victim of his routines. His life becomes shaped by intention rather than by circumstance. And so the affirmation for this part must be spoken with sincerity. I advance in the quiet hours. My future forms long before others see it. Wealth is not born in a single act. It grows through a series of movements, a sequence of deliberate choices that place a man on the upward road while others wander without direction. Every fortune I ever examined, from the smallest to the greatest, followed these same movements. Men who obey them rise. Men who ignore them remain as they are. A man must understand these movements if he desires wealth. They are not complicated, yet they require strength of character, clarity of purpose, and steady persistence. They are simple to learn, but demanding to practice. They require discipline, not brilliance, courage, not luck, intention, not impulse. These movements are 4 in number: saving, training, advancing in value, investing with purpose. If a man performs all 4 with seriousness, wealth becomes the natural consequence of his conduct. If he performs only one, wealth remains distant. If he performs none, he condemns himself to a future no larger than his present. These movements shape destiny. Let us begin with saving, the foundation upon which all later steps depend. Saving is more than placing coins aside. It is the discipline of governing one's income, directing one's desires, and proving to oneself that one can command his own habits. A man who cannot control the smallest portion of his income cannot hope to control large sums. Andrew Carnegie understood this deeply. When he earned only a few coins a week, he saved a portion of them with strict precision. His savings were small, but the discipline they represented was immense. He trained his spirit to obey his judgment, not his impulses. This obedience formed the backbone of his later fortune. Saving builds spiritual strength. It proves that a man has authority over himself. It extinguishes fear, for a man with savings is no longer at the mercy of every difficulty. It clears the mind, reduces anxiety, and enables clearer decision-making. A man who saves becomes the master of his circumstances. Most men fail at saving, not because they lack income, but because they lack order. Their desires rule them. Their impulses govern their pocket. They spend with the thoughtlessness of one who imagines prosperity is guaranteed. When hardship arrives, they blame fate, though the real cause is their undisciplined nature. But saving, practiced with consistency, shapes a man into a new form. He becomes deliberate. He becomes careful. He becomes thoughtful. He begins to question every expense, not with fear, but with authority. This authority spreads into other areas of life. He becomes stronger in will, wiser in judgment, and calmer in adversity. From saving, a man naturally proceeds to training. Training is the deliberate act of increasing one's value by sharpening one's ability. Every skill acquired expands earning power. Every new discipline opens doors that were previously closed. Training is a tool that multiplies the worth of a man far beyond what wages alone can offer. Henry Ford trained himself long before anyone paid him for his knowledge. He studied machines with such devotion that he soon understood them better than his superiors. His training gave him power. It made him valuable. It placed him on the path to wealth long before the world saw his potential. Many men work tirelessly without improving their value. They repeat the same tasks for decades, never learning more than they learned on the first day. Their labor is constant yet stagnant. They grow weary because they do not grow wise. Training frees a man from this trap. It turns each year into advancement rather than repetition. Training is the second movement because it transforms the habit of saving into the foundation of expertise. A man who saves has discipline. A man who trains becomes valuable. When he possesses both, he holds the keys to advancement. Employers notice him. Opportunities gravitate toward him. His future expands. Training prepares a man for advancement in value, the third movement. Advancement does not come merely from skill, but from usefulness. It comes from solving greater problems, carrying greater responsibility, and delivering greater results. Advancement follows conduct, not desire. Thomas Edison advanced himself by identifying needs before others saw them. His inventions answered problems the world did not yet know how to articulate. His advancement came not from waiting for reward, but from becoming a man capable of producing value on a remarkable scale. A rising man must understand this. Advancement is not a reward, it is a recognition. It is the world acknowledging the worth he has already built. A man becomes valuable in advance of wealth. Wealth arrives only when usefulness has matured sufficiently to support it. Advancement requires a man to carry himself with dignity and steadiness. He must be the one others depend upon. He must accept tasks that challenge him. He must show strength in difficulty, clarity in confusion, and calmness in pressure. Such conduct sets him apart from the common worker. When a man advances in value, his reputation changes. He becomes known as one who can be trusted. He becomes known as one whose word carries weight. His name is spoken with respect among employers and admiration among co-workers. This change occurs quietly at first, then powerfully. Once a man has become valuable, he must proceed to the fourth movement, investing with purpose. Investing is not gambling. It is the careful placement of resources, time, energy, money, into areas that produce greater return. It requires judgment, patience, and vision. Carnegie invested his early savings into opportunities that matched his skills and knowledge. He did not scatter his money carelessly. He placed it where he held advantage. As his value increased, so did the scale of his investments. His fortune grew because he invested with purpose, not impulse. Many men fail at investing because they rush into it before building the first three movements. They attempt to invest before saving. They attempt to invest before training. They attempt to invest before advancing in value. This leads to loss, disappointment, and retreat. But when a man invests after completing the first three movements, investment becomes natural. He has the discipline of saving, the wisdom of training, and the influence that comes from advanced usefulness. He observes opportunities with clarity. He evaluates them with maturity. He chooses with confidence. Investing is not limited to money. A man invests in relationships, in ideas, in ventures, in skills, and in his own mind. Each investment requires thought. Each requires purpose. Each requires understanding. When done correctly, these investments compound into a future worthy of the effort that built it. The wealth ladder forms when all four movements work together. A man climbs from wage to skill, skill to influence, influence to opportunity, and opportunity to ownership. Ownership is the highest level of the ladder, and no man reaches it by accident. Skill gives him independence. Influence gives him visibility. Opportunity gives him direction. Ownership gives him security. These stages form the natural progression of a rising man. They are possible only through obedience to the four movements. This is why I say that the law of wealth accumulation saves 20 or 30 years of wandering. Many men spend decades chasing methods, shortcuts, schemes, or systems, never realizing that wealth comes from transformations within. The inner changes create the outer results. Saving builds command. Training builds value. Advancement builds visibility. Investment builds permanence. A man who follows these movements cannot remain small. His character deepens, his judgment sharpens, his life expands. Even if he begins with little, he rises because law demands that value be rewarded. As he follows these movements, his family notices his transformation. They see his discipline, they feel his steadiness, they observe his growth. They sense that he is creating a future larger than the present. This brings peace to the household and admiration to the man. Rivals notice as well. They see a man who grows more capable each year. They sense that he is no longer easily discouraged. They observe that opportunities gather around him. They feel compelled to respect him, even if they once doubted him. The discipline of wealth accumulation creates dignity. A man gains confidence because he knows he is building something real. Each choice strengthens his foundation. Each sacrifice increases his strength. Each decision shapes the future. Wealth responds to such a man because he has become the type of man who deserves it. Wealth follows character more than circumstance. It follows structure more than chance. It follows discipline more than desire. And so you must speak the affirmation that seals this movement into your spirit. Each disciplined choice strengthens the fortune I am building. A man reaches a decisive turning point in his rise when wealth is no longer something he chases, but something that moves toward him because he has become worthy of it. This state is not achieved through chance nor through mere desire. It is reached when a man's identity becomes larger than his former limitations, when his conduct aligns with the standards wealth demands. Wealth does not serve the unprepared. It cannot remain in the life of a man governed by fear, indecision, or disorder. Wealth remains where strength remains. It stays where clarity stays. It obeys the man who carries the authority of inward command. This command is not loud. It is steady, mature, and unmistakable. Before wealth obeys a man, the man must first obey himself. He must follow his own direction with accuracy. He must honor his own word. He must keep his own promises. A man who breaks commitments to himself cannot expect wealth to trust him with larger responsibilities. Fortune requires a leader, not a drifter. This is what I call the wealth identity, the inward character that attracts prosperity without force or pleading. The wealth identity is marked by calmness, decision, usefulness, preparation, and moral authority. These qualities form the core of a man whom opportunity seeks and misfortune struggles to disturb. Calmness is the first sign of the wealth identity. A man who has mastered his thought carries a quiet steadiness in every environment. Those around him feel safe. His composure is not passivity. It is strength that does not fear uncertainty. Calmness signals that he governs himself, and self-government commands respect. Decision is the second sign. A man with the wealth identity moves without hesitation when clarity has been reached. He does not postpone the duty that lies before him. Decision gives life its shape. Indecision keeps a man trapped in the same battles for years. A decisive man moves from one level of life to another with purpose. Usefulness forms the third sign. A wealthy identity is a valuable identity. It brings strength, solves problems, builds order, and increases the worth of every situation it enters. Prosperity is drawn to usefulness like metal to a magnet. If a man is useful, he rises. If he is not, he remains as he is. Preparation marks the fourth sign. A man who prepares himself does not fear the unexpected. He studies, he organizes, he reflects, he anticipates. Wealth is more comfortable in the hands of a prepared mind than in the hands of one who hopes blindly. Preparation is proof that a man respects his future. Then there is moral authority, the fifth sign. A man with moral authority does not cheat himself or others. His conduct is clean. His intentions are steady. His word can be trusted. Wealth tends to remain with men who carry honor because honor prevents the choices that destroy fortunes. Look at Henry Ford. His certainty was not arrogance. It was the natural effect of a mind trained to trust its own judgment. Investors withdrew support from him. Experts called him misguided. Yet his voice never wavered. His inner certainty was the engine of his rise, and his fortune obeyed the identity he had built long before the world recognized it. Observe Andrew Carnegie. His clarity was so strong that men who worked with him often felt as though they were working under the direction of law itself. His decisions were firm. His mind was orderly. His word was iron. Wealth did not surprise him. It followed him because he lived at a level that demanded it. Consider John D. Rockefeller. His steadiness was legendary. He did not fight the storm. He outlasted it. His calmness frustrated rivals because they could not find a weakness in his temperament. He governed his emotions with the precision of a master craftsman. Wealth trusted such a man. This identity is not inherited. It is built. It grows from small beginnings. A man begins by disciplining one habit, then 2, then 10. He becomes the kind of person who finishes what he starts. He becomes the kind who does not rely on excuses. He becomes the kind who does not break under pressure. These choices shape the wealth identity. A man must understand that wealth is not attracted to effort alone. It is attracted to stability. A frantic worker may toil without advancement if his nature is unsettled. But a steady man, even if less skilled, often rises faster because his composure signals leadership. Wealth prefers the hands of one who does not shake. When a man's identity rises, others feel it before they see it. His employer senses that he has become serious. His partners notice that he carries weight in his decisions. His spouse observes that hesitation has left him. His children see that he behaves like a leader. These reactions form the early signs of a changing destiny. The man does not need to announce this change. Announcement is unnecessary. Identity speaks louder than speech. Conduct reveals everything. Those around him begin treating him with a respect they once withheld. They mention his name with caution. They share his counsel with others. They mark him as one who is advancing. This natural recognition is not vanity. It is a result of alignment. When a man's thoughts, actions, habits, and standards move in the same direction, he becomes powerful. The scattered thoughts that once weakened him disappear. The fears that once troubled him lose their authority. He becomes whole. To reach this state, a man must remove behaviors that contradict his rise. He must cast aside careless habits, uncontrolled speech, idle time, and any environment that draws him backward. He must protect himself from influences that weaken the mind. Wealth demands purity of direction. The wealth identity also requires a man to treat his future seriously. He must not approach it lightly. He must not depend on chance. He must carry himself with the dignity of one who is building something that will outlast him. This seriousness is not heaviness, it is reverence for the life he intends to create. Identity changes judgment. A man of rising identity sees opportunities that others overlook. He feels responsible for his progress. He sees connections between ideas that others fail to notice. His mind grows sharper, his choices wiser, his path clearer. Wealth flows into paths shaped by accurate judgment. Identity changes speech. A man who has transformed himself does not speak of difficulties with defeat. He speaks with calm authority. His words carry intention. They spread confidence. They encourage others to follow his example. His speech becomes the outward expression of inward strength. Identity changes posture. He stands straighter. He moves with purpose. He walks with the air of one who knows where he is going. Others feel the power of his presence long before he says anything. His posture becomes a silent announcement of his rise. Identity changes endurance. A man with a wealthy identity does not stop because the road grows rough. He continues, he adapts, he studies, he persists. He turns obstacles into guidance. He does not collapse when conditions turn against him. His nature is too strong to be defeated by temporary storms. Identity changes ambition. He no longer dreams of small improvements. He dreams of transformation. He no longer asks, "How do I survive?" He asks, "How do I lead?" He no longer seeks comfort. He seeks mastery. Such ambition attracts opportunities that remain hidden from smaller minds. Identity changes reputation. Men begin speaking of him as one who accomplishes what he sets out to do. Employers trust him with larger tasks. Partners rely on his steadiness. Rivals respect his endurance. His name carries weight even among those he has never met because reliable men speak of him with approval. Identity changes fortune. Wealth responds differently to a man who has shaped himself through discipline. It obeys him because he has become the type of man who can hold it, use it, and multiply it without losing his integrity or direction. Wealth is not endangered in his hands. This final transformation, becoming the man wealth must obey, comes after the earlier movements. A man cannot skip the steps that precede it. He must save. He must train. He must increase his value. He must invest with purpose. These acts shape the character that gives him the right to rise. Once a man has become this new form of himself, failure loses its grip. Setbacks no longer threaten him. Delays no longer discourage him. He does not fear loss because he knows he can rebuild. He does not fear competition because he knows his identity makes him strong. Wealth becomes a responsibility, not a mystery. The wealth identity spreads into every area of life. Work becomes purposeful. Home becomes stable. Finances become clear. Relationships become stronger. Plans become firmer. Decisions become faster. He becomes a man who lives in harmony with law, and life responds accordingly. This state is rare. Most men never reach it because they chase wealth instead of preparing for it. They pursue possessions instead of character. They desire results without transformation. Yet the wealthy man I studied again and again was the one who changed himself first. Let this be understood clearly. Wealth becomes obedient only when the man becomes definite. The indefinite man wanders. The definite man rises. The indefinite man waits for permission. The definite man creates his own future. The indefinite man hopes. The definite man orders his thought and obeys his direction. A man who has built this identity does not need to wonder whether wealth will arrive. It has no choice. His value is too strong. His mind is too ordered. His decisions are too firm. His preparation is too deep. His identity is too powerful. Wealth must answer such a man. And so the final affirmation is not spoken as a hope, but as a declaration of what you are becoming. I rise in worth, and wealth must rise to meet me. I become the man who commands his future.